lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
A half-second lead. Oh, but just a car in the background.
He has it. Oh, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to round number 6 of the Automobilista Australia Supercars Championship for 2020. The short sprint circuits just keep on coming. This time it's Calder Park Raceway, one of 2 circuits that was on last year's calendar that no longer exists, but it's the only one that's been retained for this year's championship. It was a pretty popular choice last year, actually, and so popular that we've elected to run it again and bring up the sprint format. Same as what we did last year, 2 sprint races. These ones will have a pit stop to go along with it, as opposed to last year's sprint to the finish. Who's going to come out on top? Well, we had 2 different winners to add to our list of, well, was one winner up until that point last round. Kurt Stenberg having his winning streak snapped at 7 races at his home track. And he's not too far off the top time, with all the top times being relatively close in practice, with still 15 minutes left on the board. But this place is pretty tricky, as you just saw with that chicane. You can take that flat out, but there are some really, really tricky little bits of this circuit to get right. Very, very easy to spin the car. Very, very easy to make a mistake. And on a short circuit, mistakes are magnified. Thank you for joining Outworld Broadcasting's coverage of the AMS-Oz Supercars for 2020. My name's Steve DeVries, and it's always a pleasure to welcome along my commentator in partner, Hans Brunswick.
Thanks, Stephen. I hope you weren't going to call me commentator-in-chief, because that's your job. You're the circus ringmaster. I'm merely the circus act. So great to be back at Calder Park. Great to be back with all Outward Broadcasting, and looking forward to a couple of fantastic races tonight.
Yeah, a couple of good sprint races. We kind of expect that the pace is going to be a little bit quicker than what the lap records were set last year, and we are tracking about half a second under those qualifying lap records at the moment. We might even see someone dive into the 55s, which would be an absolutely blistering lap, considering the previous track records are in the mid to high 56s, qualifying and race. But what we will do, while we've got the practice session still ticking down, is we will have a look at the recap from the previous round, which was the Western Twin Sprint at Barbagallo Raceway in Western Australia. Will Devenish didn't have to worry too much about angling his car on these starts this time around, because he had the pole and he made it count at the very beginning.
Yeah, he was able to convert from the pole position on the outside at Barbagallo straight into the lead, and he took that lead very promptly from Kurt Stenberg, who actually had to battle him the whole race, and they were more or less nose to tail for the whole race as they escaped from the likes of Peter and Brenton Foley.
Well, fantastic curb cams as well that we've been introduced at Barbagallo as well. The race was without incident though. There's Brenton Foley getting into Pete Savage in the opening laps. Here's a nice move from Scott Nolan. Turn 1 was definitely the action hotspot. Nolan getting down the inside of Liam Mitch's Monster Energy Mustang in pursuit of Liam Spencer in the early going. And here's another one that was very, very close as well. Phil Boak, Brenton Foley's teammate, getting into Billy Dougal Salonga there, causing quite a logjam at turn 1. This guy was a newcomer to the category, Luke Rosella, and he made his impact immediately.
Yeah, first race out for him. It was immediately known by everyone that there was a new kid on the block, and he was ready to go. He raced in ASC before. He's joined our series, and he's very welcome here. Look at this textbook manoeuvre down here. I was singing his praises after this move on Lime Mitch, and there's Zach Ross just in the background maintaining a watching brief. 2 monster cars there, actually. They're both green and black. I just noticed that now. But Luke Rosella, he skipped away into the distance while the 2 monster cars, one LSS, one privateer car, as they battled away into oblivion. And Scotty Stancliffe, sorry, that wasn't Scotty Stancliffe, that was Brendan Ross. He was actually getting a good view of that as well. Actually came together with Lime Mitch.
Yeah, that was one we caught on the broadcast. A little bit of an incident that was under review after the racing was over. Foley, as always, getting the back out sideways. We didn't capture this on the broadcast, but have a look at this getting into the pit lane. This is why Kurt Stenberg lost so much time through the pit lane sequences. He made a mistake getting into pit lane in behind Will Devenish. And then when the rejoin all happened, have a look at this for an interesting bit of Hans. Out comes Will Devenish into clean air, not a soul around him. And then behind him, look what happened to Stenberg. Came out and he was immediately in the lap traffic. And you're wondering why the margin was at the end of the race. That's precisely why. Bad timing, mistake getting onto pit road, and Stenny paid the price for it.
Yeah, not ideal. The lap traffic endeavours to get out of the way as quick as possible, but unfortunately not quick enough for Stenberg there. But here was the provisional leader. This was Brenton Foley taking his pit stop. Luke Rosella, he's having a big battle there with Phil Boak. He actually ended up nearly rolling the car and ended up in the sand trap, and thankfully he lived to fight on another day. And here we see Boak, he's actually struggling a lot, and he's just gone off the end of turn 1. Very easy to do here at Barbagallo, and loses a position to Rosella and later on Liam Spencer as well. So tried to have a go at him but wasn't able to do it on the outside.
No, Boakey basically got mugged on those last couple of laps with that little mistake. But it was Will Devenish who took the chocolates in the opening race of the Western Twin Sprint, and as we said, finally snapping that 7-race winning streak for Kurt Stenberg. And there's your results from race 1 of the Western Twin Sprint. Devenish, Stenberg and Foley, the top 3, all Holdens, then a pair of Fords in Hathaway and Savage. That incident for Brendan Ross, you can see him down there in 10th. He incurred a 15-second penalty for that incident with Lime Mitch, which tumbled him down from what was an 8th place finish into 10th. And then we took a little bit of a breather, and then we got set to go again. And this time, with Stenberg having the much better reaction time in both races, he was actually able to convert from 2nd place on the grid and take the early lead on lap 1. Again, the field was all pretty well compressed and pretty well behaved for most of the opening lap, but pretty much that's where it stopped.
Yeah, from there it all went downhill. It was just pretty much chaos from there. Here we see, this is the end of the first lap actually, and Will Devenish very slightly got in the back of Stenberg, and Foley got caught up in that incident as well. Got a bit of steering damage. Luke Rosella went to the inside, and Will Devenish was there to redress the position. Here's Liam Spencer, the new young gun for CRE Electrical team, and he was in a big battle with Brendan Ross after he made a mistake. He pushed Brendan Ross over the curb, and this made them vulnerable to Luke Rosella, who was ranging up on the back of them very quickly.
Yeah, the second race was full of mistakes for a lot of people. Everybody tripping over each other and making a few little mistakes at the corners. What was becoming very apparent, though, was this train was getting bigger by the minute as the leaders were the former race leaders were starting to try and fight their way through as well. They basically ended up plumb last and second to plumb last, and had to come through all these drivers again. Same as what they had to do when they had the safety car intervention at Pukekohe. They had to really fight hard on such a short track. Mistakes kept coming. Liam Spencer again made another mistake off at turn 7. A little bit of a glancing blow on the wall. But this is the interesting ones. Will Devenish says he was trying to stay with Kurt Stenberg, getting into Zach Ross on the run up the hill up to turn 3 and 4. They ultimately lost a couple of positions on that lap during that exchange. And then what we thought was shaping up for a really nice exchange, over and under treatment here. Zach Ross gets Will Devenish back on the crossover, and then they head up the hill, and this was adjudged Devenish closing down on Zach Ross at the end of the day. We actually thought at the spur of the moment that was actually a return serve. It wasn't. Even the points leader wasn't immune to making a few mistakes, getting into the back of Brendan Ross there as well.
Very brave move from a far way back into cold corner. But if it was, here he goes peeling into the pits. He was trying to avoid a battle between Luke Rosella and Scott Nolan. He actually ended up coming out back into that battle after service. So he was probably ruining that one there. But it was a cracking battle. And I mean, I would have been pretty impressed if I pulled out behind them again just to watch it all again. But he worked really hard to try and get past them. Couldn't get past them. And then ended up behind that battle again. Here's Hathaway going off. Bit of a mistake for him. He ended up out in the boonies, as Lewis would say. Lewis Wedding, that is.
Yeah, he did pretty well, actually, to get back on for the sector marker as well, which was one of the talking points about on the driver's notes for that particular night. If you went off at that part of the circuit, you had to do really well to get back on. You can see there Steve Burko going off. He had pretty much the whole front straightaway to himself, and then ended up, as he went off the road, getting tangled in this little battle with Liam Mitch and Liam Spencer having another go at him down at Cold Corner. Couldn't quite pull the move off. But through all the chaos, the defending champion finally got himself a win on the board.
Fantastic win for Brenton Foley. A very hard-earned win as well. He was holding off a rampaging Kurt Stenberg, and the top 3 was rounded out by Peter Savage. To Mitch Hathaway and Brandon Ross rounding out the top 5 after his disastrous penalty in race 1.
Yeah, and Will Devenish copping a pair of 10-second penalties for his contacts with Zach Ross in there as well. Ross actually finished, I think it was the last car 1 lap down after all of that as well. So that kind of didn't go according to plan for the man aboard the LSS machine. But Hans, it was still a pretty good cracking pair of races, the Barbagallo round, the Western Twin Sprint. Got a completely different element tonight though. What we'll do now is we'll actually take a little bit of a look at the hot lap, which as we are getting all of our drivers to do over the course of the year. This one, finally, we can get our hands on our reigning teams champs from last year. So Phil Boak elected to jump in and have a bit of a go for us.
Hey guys, welcome to round 6 of the AMS Oz Supercars Championship. We're at Calder Park. Let's do a lap. Heading into turn 1 here, there's no real brake markers, so I use the rubber on the road. Down to second, I like to double apex it. Maximise your exit, but also watch the dirt because there's no exit curb. Into third quickly, then down to second into 2, grab as much curb as you dare. Into 3, maximise your exit onto this back straight. Coming into the chicane, you need to try and straight line this best you can. This is turn 4 and 5. Watch your exit, easy to get sideways and lose the rear. Into 6, on the brakes down to second at the rubber build again. Hold it tight so you can maximise the entry into 7. Out of 7, I hold second gear on the brakes, grab a bit of curb, maximise your exit onto this front straight. And that is a lap of Calder Park. She's short and sweet, should be good fun. See you in the night. Good luck guys. Thanks.
Big thanks to Phil Boak there for giving up some of his time to show us the ins and outs of this 10-turn, nearly 2.5k, now defunct circuit, Hans. The most important thing about this circuit tonight is the differences from last year, which is not very much, except for those pesky tyre bundles that were on the insides of the chicanes at turns 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. It wasn't the tyres that were the problem last year, it was the hard as rock sacks of sand that was behind them that if you clouted them you paid a real penalty. So they are gone, the track cuts are still enforced, but it's taken, I guess, a bit of a safety element or an issue with the safety part of it out of the equation, meaning that if someone makes a mistake, at least they'll be able to get through the corner safely. That being said, it's still a very tricky track though.
Yeah, very short, sharp circuit, Calder Park, just north of Melbourne, on the Hume Highway, just up near Keilor. And it's actually, amazingly, when you're driving the track, you don't think it is the shape that it is, but looking from the top-down view, it's actually a very narrow sort of circuit. It's, it's only 2.5 k's long. It's basically half the circuit is a drag strip, and the other half is very, very short, sharp, small chicanes, very tight sort of stuff, and a lot of bumps as well. And the cars, in real life, they used to struggle with the transmissions in these cars because the engine was just going up and down through the rev range a lot and lighting up the rear tyres. Similar problem here. We don't need to worry about transmission problems and spending money on that, but we do need to worry about wheel spin and whether we spin out of corners, Steve.
Yeah, precisely. The Super 2 field obviously went through that transition and that experience as well earlier this year. I think probably about 6 or so weeks ago was the Calder Park round for Super 2. They're of course following the same calendar in terms of the tracks that everybody else does in the supercars, just on a fortnightly basis as opposed to being spread a bit further throughout the season. But they went through precisely those same challenges. One of the real tricky corners is really the last chicane, so just before the Sector 2 marker, so in the bottom left-hand corner of the map there. It's one of those rob Peter to pay Paul corners as well. You've got to, as Phil Boak said on his description, you've really got to take that corner and try and stay tight as far right because you want to open up for that left-hander, and then pretty much turn 9 is basically just a bit of curb. You just flat curb, you just run straight over it. And Phil actually bouncing off the rev limiter going into the last bit of the circuit as well. So that's really the only problematic part of the circuit, I guess you would call it, as to where someone might try and sneak it up the inside, try and run a little bit deep. Turn 1 is the heaviest braking zone on the circuit, and then those chicanes. The first chicane is a normals type chicane. The second one's actually flat out. The third one's probably the tricky one to get right.
Yeah, the second chicane is just a bit of a flip-flop. You just need to float the car over the curbs and hopefully you don't spin. But the first and third chicanes, they are both the sort of, like you say, the rob Peter to pay Paul sort of chicanes, because you have pretty much no apex speed. You sacrifice all your apex speed, you brake early for the first chicane, first part of the chicane, and then for the second corner of the chicane, you're looking to take a late apex and get that car rocketing out as quick as you possibly can.
Yeah, all about the corner exit in that particular situation, even though it's just a very short, sharp shoot from that third chicane up to the double apex last couple of corners. Getting that corner exit right is so important because it hurts your speed all the way down the drag strip, as you call it. You can see there it's nice and thick. Pit lane is actually quite an interesting entry here as well. It comes off pretty much straight before you get to the last corner, and it's a very long looping entry to pit lane. And on top of that, the pit lane speed limit comes up quite suddenly. It's probably one of the longest pit lanes we have on the calendar, which is going to be interesting with how the drivers try and attack that and how they try and get on and off pit road, given that we now have pit stops in this sprint series of events.
Yeah, one issue that immediately comes to light just looking at the track map, the entry to pit lane is very problematic in the sense that if you have a car in front and they don't pit but you're going to pit, you can drive straight in as you please and brake later for the pit lane entry curve there. But there is a curve just before that, and that's still on the racetrack. So you need to be careful not to hit any other cars. If there's any front to rear contact, the stewards will come down very heavily on that. And the speed limit zone and having a pit stop, the speed limit zone, you need to get to that 40k an hour speed limit. You're 41 k's an hour over, 1k an hour over, 41 k's an hour, you are getting a penalty. And not only that, if you go a lap down here, it's very likely because if you botch your pit stop, you may go a lap down.
Yeah, we did see that a couple of times in the last round as well. A few drivers went a lap down just from silly mistakes, from speeding on pit lane, having to repair damage where they didn't have to repair damage, those sorts of things, they all add up. And you're absolutely right. The entrance to pit lane is essentially on the racing line. It's not like any other circuit where you move off the racing line to take to the pit lane entry. That is smack bang on the middle of the racing line and in a braking zone as well. So the lead car, if they wanted to shoot straight on, not a problem. You're the car behind, you've got to be a bit patient. You've got to time that run, and you've got to make sure you get into pit lane nice and safe as well. About time we had a bit of a look at what is going on as the practice session has just come to a conclusion, and the man at the top of the timesheets appears to be Will Devenish, and his time was a 56.188, which is a pretty handy time by all accounts. And our session has just ticked over for 15 minutes of qualifying. There's just not many cars out there in the pit lane at the moment, waiting for everybody to get themselves together. What are you looking for in this session, Hans? What's the end goal? A low 56 is obviously a very, very handy time.
Obviously, having the 15-minute open qualifying session, your goal is just use as many tyre sets as you can to get, and obviously leaving enough tyre sets for the tyre changes and the races. Use as many as you can to get your lap time as close as possible to the 55s, because there is a very real possibility that it may be a 56 dead or a 55.9 pole position time. So we just saw Will Devenish, provisional pole in the practice session with a 56.18. Brenton Foley was a couple of tenths behind him, I believe. And so the top 50 best laps on the server, it's actually Kurt Stenberg with a 55.98. So it's very real possibility that they could be in the 55.9, Steve.
So we have seen a 59 obviously there in practice, as you just said. Right, here we go. Now we've got some live pictures coming to you as the field gets ready to go for qualifying. And have a look at them all lining up already.
Saw a bit of a issue with the steering angle there for Will Devenish. He's probably not running that much lock on.
It is a bit difficult, surprisingly difficult to get out of the pit lane here. A few drivers already commenting that they're having some trouble actually being told, run a little bit more steering lock, or you're basically going to have to wrench the steering wheel hard left before you decide to put your foot on the accelerator pedal to get out of the lane. Surprised to see so many cars coming out this early. And we've got Brendan Ross, we've got Liam Spencer, watching Brenton Foley go around. We've also coming out in back a shot. I think Will Devenish has had a couple of bites of trying to get out. Stenberg's gone out there as well. 19 runners so far in the server. Let's go up and see if we can pick up Brendan Ross, seeing as he's going to give us this first flying lap in qualifying. Oh, and he's gone off the circuit there as well. Just understeered completely off. Well, that's just blown that to a burden.
So no longer the first flying lap on the board
no,
for
it's going
Brendan
to be,
Ross.
Will end up being Liam Spencer, I believe, if we cycle through and pick up who's next. And indeed, Liam Spencer, little flash of the lights, and he is on the clock. So good situational awareness there from the guys trying to exit the pit lane. They're going to have a bit of a time trying to get themselves going here. Spencer to turn 1. Turns it in early, doesn't quite follow the rubber trails that you can see there, doesn't want to stay wide, and sort of angles it toward the corner. Plenty of curb here at turn 2. A little bit at 3, use the exit curb at 4. And blast up and over the hill. And is he flat through here? Yes, he is. Plenty of curb. Very, very nicely done. Oh, Brenton Foley with a little bit of air coming over that second part of the chicane behind him as well. Now, this is that Rob Peter to pay Paul corner that we were just talking about. Spencer hasn't done that as well as he probably should. He was probably a bit closer to the mid-track than he needed to be. He needed to be a bit further right to get a bit better run through there. But nonetheless, he's done 43 seconds to the second sector marker. This drag race now to the line, it's going to be a high 56, so it's a 56.9, immediately eclipsed by Foley, immediately eclipsed by Ross.
Next man up to the line is Will Devenish. He's on a 42.7 second split, and that's about 1/10 faster than anything else so far, and he goes to the top 56.58 provisional pole for Devenish. Kurt Stenberg, meanwhile, sets a lap 8 seconds down. That's not his first flying lap. He's just warming up. He's got the eyes on, so he's going for another lap.
Here's our new boy from last week, Luke Rosella, already a hair up on the pole time at the moment. Still in the Volvo, sporting some new colours. Very, very nice colours, I must say. A bit of a retro livery almost in a way, Hans.
Bit of a 1998 AMP 1000 look. I believe Rickard Rydell and Jim Richards were driving that car, the Volvo S60. If Michael Floodman Zalavari is watching this, he'll be excited that I got that right.
I'm sure he will.
He's a big fan of this livery.
He very is. He saw that livery and he was chuffed to bits, I think, when he saw that pop up in Discord a couple of weeks ago, not long after the Barbagallo round. The provisional pole sitter at the moment, and he's up again on his own time.
Well, just look at this. Brenton Foley's
Look
done
at
the
the split.
exact same time to the 1,000th of a second.
Yeah, we're actually just looking into live races, and it's actually just rounded it up by 1/1000th of a second. Devenish now top, so Devenish now pretty much puts that out of the question. So what's Rosella got in response? Nothing on this lap. He was up on his own time, but now he's not up at all on any of it. So this man's got the eyes on the minute. Got Kurt Stenberg behind him, and then behind Stenberg, who's that on the track just going out of shot there? Looks like that's Rhodey. Where is our man who leads the standings at the moment? He's currently P15. Here he is, Stenberg. In actual fact, he was up, I think, at Sector 1. What's it look like at Sector 2? Up on his PB by a mile. Up on the provisional pole time by a hair. Gets a very, very nice exit, uses all the road, which is what you've got to do. You've got to get that power down nice and early, and he goes to the top. Finds a little bit of extra time as well. Now we're into the 56.2s. Definitely not the lap times that we saw in practice, but they've probably still got a little bit of time before we get there, as Stenny aborts that lap.
Will Devenish onto another lap now. He's still got the lights on. He's going on with it. He did.
Oh,
a bit too much curb there.
Just seen Rhodey go around at turn 1, so he's the man that's currently 18th and last on the standings at the moment, albeit except for Lewis Wedding, who has not taken to the track.
Meanwhile, Devenish is up. He was up about 1/10 of a second on Stenberg, I believe.
Correct. Let's see how he handles this corner. Again, everybody's sort of not being able to get that car moved over to the right-hand side of the track in the right sort of manner, but the timing sheet says, well, it doesn't really bother me that you went to the middle of the track. Still got plenty of time on the board. In actual fact, maintaining that advantage. Had a little bit of a wiggle out of the final corner. cost him a little bit of time, but he still lowers the bar. But being lowered in very, very small increments here, Hans, is the same sort of thing that we saw at Pukekohe, same sort of thing we saw at Barbagallo. It doesn't get lowered by very much, but when it does, it just gets every so often just a little piece, just like chipping away at a block of ice. Just a little bit comes off and a little bit comes off, and eventually we get down to a time sort of reminiscent of what we kind of expect it to be.
Think of it like polishing a car. You've just got to level the paint with your polishing compound. We're talking about those fine increments right now.
No, we certainly are talking about those fine increments. Foley and Rosella still have not been able to post a time better than what they've meant to be done. That'll be actually the first time, I think, in a very, very long time that we've seen 2 times near identical on the standings. Having a look down the list as well, Colin Warwick and Brendan Ross very close together. So too Liam Spencer, Phil Boak, and you can throw Pete Savage and Scott Stancliffe into that equation. Burko's having a pretty good run as well. He's 7.5 tenths down on the pole time, but look at that, the top 13 all within 1 second of each other. Make that the top 14 as Cam Rutledge improves his time to go within 2.5 hundredths of Termo. So again, these really small margins that are being chipped away here, any little small gain is going to completely change the complexion of this order.
Kurt Stenberg slower to the first split by 0.2 of a second, but Will Devenish, he was up by 0.5 tenth of a second. So 0.05 of a second up on his provisional pole time. And again, shaving that block of ice just ever so slightly, Will Devenish, and he's up by 0.1 of a second. Let's see Stenberg's time.
Stenny was actually about 1.5 down when he gets to the line. So here he comes to the line now. It's going to be time in the 56s. So doesn't improve very much. Devenish lowers the bar again. Right,
56.1. So now we're getting ever closer to the magic 55s.
We've been very, very close. And Will was saying to us in the chat before racing got underway, he was about 17 thousandths away from breaking into a 55.9. As we've seen, the only man who's been able to register a 55.9 in any form of practice was Kurt Stenberg when he did a 55. Is it a 990 I can see there, Hans, on your screen?
55.980 for Stenberg.
980.
So Will Devenish,
oh, Foley's just made a move. Sorry, Hans. Foley's actually just gone P2 by a smidgen. So he's found a little bit of time. Finally managed to surpass that time that Luke Roselle's done. Termo with a good jump. Termo jumps up and finds a 0.5 second, moves up to 5th ahead of Liam Spencer. So this is a man who's had his fair share of dramas, not just in Supercars, but in GT3 as well. And good to see him, as we mentioned him, he goes around and does a nice pirouette for us. But it's good to see him moving up the standings.
Termo, he's actually coming off a couple of race wins last night in the AMS Oz TSAC series. The final round of the TSAC series, I believe it was, at Pukekohe Park. And he was running 51 on his car. So the king of Pukekohe, Greg Murphy, used to run 51 on all his cars. And I guess Termo used that to great effect last night.
Got his tail up, got a bit of confidence in the car and in the driver, I'd imagine then.
He's got a lot of confidence, and you should have seen him in the interview afterwards. He spoke a lot more than I've ever heard him speak in my life.
Rosella's just moved to P2 as well now, so Rosella responds to Foley leapfrogging him and goes P2. Not that far away from Will Devenish either. So
56.207 for Rosella, very good time.
Very, very handy time. Burko's moved up the order a little bit as well, so a few drivers getting shuffled down the order and a few drivers coming forward. Look at that, Liam Spencer, 0.000, basically matching his split to his personal best up to the second sector mark. He's going to lose a bit of time though because he had a poor exit off of the final corner.
Meanwhile, Stenberg has jumped up to second with the 56.126. That displaces Rosella and Foley back onto the second row of the grid. And let's see what this lap is now. So he's 1/10 down on the provisional best time and about 1/100th of a second down on his personal best time.
Still pressing on with it though, behind Wayne Spencer currently on track. Wayne Spencer's currently P15, not quite able to break into the times that he needs to be at the moment. I think, did I spy Lewis Wedding going out? Yes, I did. So Lewis Wedding's on a flying lap as well. Right, now watch this one with interest, as a number of drivers are starting to leave the lane for their final runs. Burko and Termo all off the racing line. Oh, and Rhodey's just going to... Oh, no.
Oh,
that's
disaster.
Yeah, Lewis is in two minds there. He'll have time to go again, but I think Rhodey probably... Actually, Rhodey wasn't even on a flying lap. He was on an out lap, so he really needed to be off the road there. I think it probably distracted Lewis a little bit.
Meanwhile, Stenberg, provisional pole position, 56.064.
He has
As
indeed, and he's gone back to the pits as well. So where's Will? And he's going again. So what's Devenish got in store here? Fractionally away. A little bit of a slide coming out of the final corner.
Top 13 cars at the moment, they're actually within a second, actually 9/10 of a second, and the next car back is Cam Rutledge. He's 1.02 seconds off the pace.
Yeah, it was the top 14 cars that were separated by a second as well, with Stenberg lowering the bar. That just pushed Cam Rutledge out of that 1 second realm for a little while. So
Stenberg's come out at a good time here. He's before this massive train of traffic. There's Brenton Ross.
Oh, and Devenish had a moment coming out of the first chicane as well, so he's going to have to probably reposition himself and go again, but you're right. He's got some clear track ahead. The nearest car ahead of him is one of the PBF cars, which is the Foley car, I believe. It's quite some distance up the road, so plenty of open track for Stenberg.
Devenish, meanwhile, is on a hot lap. He's just approaching the second sector split, coming out of turn 7.
He had a moment on that lap, though, as well. We did catch it just on the broadcast. He had a bit of a slide going through one of the turns.
Off.
So he's going to gear himself up to have another go here.
He's pushing hard, coming off the final corner. Let's see if the lap time improves slightly, showing that he's got a better run out of the final corner. And it doesn't. So he's got a bit of a slower run through the final corner there.
Yep. A few drivers deciding to pull the pin now. Wedding's coming out for another go here, so he's going to have to feed back into the traffic situation. Let's see where he comes out. There he is, trundling down the lane at this, well, what we call it, snail's pace, 40 k's an hour. He's going to want to make sure he doesn't get caught up in any of these cars that are in this train as they're all just filing past. Look at them, there they go. There goes Rosella, there goes Savage, there goes, I think it's Stancliffe, there goes Cam Rutledge. They're all just going past. Here comes Phil Boak and Colin Warwick in the back of shot as well. So that's a little bit better for Wedding. Oh, it's Warwick. I'm not sure if that's just a mistake or if he's just pulled off the road there.
Meanwhile, Devenish, he's actually nearly at 1.5 tenths up at the second sector. He's set a purple first sector and a green second sector, so not the fastest second sector, but he's still been able to keep the time
up. 55, yes, it's a 55. It's a 55.925. Fastest lap we have seen all night, and not only that, all practice sessions as well. So he's got what he wanted. He's got the 55. Now, does this man respond? He's got 2 3.25 minutes to do it.
Critical moments now for Stenberg if he's going to get pole. And very interesting line through there, double apex.
I was about to say, he actually sort of almost missed that first part of the apex and decided to pick up a late apex, tried to get a little bit more power on. Doesn't use all the curb at the second part of the chicane though, and it's cost him 2.25 tenths of a second. Flat through the chicane, little bit of a wiggle on the exit. You've got to be very careful when you try and straight line that chicane. You can't sort of put any wheel work in at all, or the rear end's going to kick around and bite you. Second sector split. Continues to disagree with him. Let's throw away this lap. He'll get 2 more bites of the cherry. Who's ahead of him on the track at the minute? That's one of the PBF cars. Looks like it might be that Foley, or is
that's Foley actually?
Foley just ahead. So Foley in P4. So Stenberg gets 2 more goes. Yes, it is Brenton Foley. There we go. Burko's going to get another lap. So too is Rhodey. And who's that behind Rhodey that's got the headlights on right now? That is Lime Mitch. So he was actually giving a bit of a toe to Lime Mitch there, I think, Rhodey. I'm not sure that the PBF guys will be too keen about that.
It's all about being strategic when you get the toe. Here we go, Lewis Wedding. He's about to set a lap time now.
Here he comes. It's going to be a 57 to open the batting for Lewis Wedding. 57.6. He'll press on here. Got a little bit of time to Pete Savage that's just ahead of him at the moment on track. Now Lewis, I'm not sure if he's backed out of this lap. He's going a little bit slower than I thought. Didn't look like he got the braking zone all right for turn 1. And let's see what the timing split says when he gets to it. He's actually up on his PB, so he's still pressing on with it, even though it looked like he was slowing down. He's definitely still pushing. 8 tenths up on his own PB at this juncture will move him up into the mid-pack. Rides plenty of curb through turn 6. Little turn 7, flat part of turn 8. 6.5 tenths down on the leader's time. So this is good enough for a 4th or 5th row start, depending on what his exit is out of the final corner. Clock has now gone 0. Number of drivers coming into the lane. And Wedding goes 13th, so he lost a little bit of time in that final sector.
Far from ideal run for Wedding. He is one of the pace men. let's hope that there is a bit of strategy in there so he can bring up the he can actually make his way up the field. Devenish is about to complete his final flying lap, and it's off the pace. It's about 1 second off, and Stenberg has aborted. So Stenberg and Devenish, they both got in a final lap there, or Stenberg nearly. They did cross the line before the clock went zero. Burko, final lap is about 8/10 off the pace. He doesn't improve.
No improvement for Burko.
Colin Warwick, he's improved on his PB to the second sector split. And a bit of a
be
slide through there. Slides again, catches the slide again.
This will be enough to move him up one spot in the order, maybe even 2 or 3, depending on how his exit was out of the final corner. And it's 3 spots, so he found a little bit extra time. So that's a good last sector for Colin Warwick. And I believe he's the last man to cross the line as well. And goes for a little 360 pirouette. Yes, a couple of cars out there just completing their warm down laps. So that was Brenton Foley, and going straight on at the final chicane.
Very creative racing line there.
It was. So the pole man for the second week, or round in a row rather, is Will Devenish, and he'll be joined again on the front row by Kurt Stenberg.
Now we'll see if the pole is on the outside or the inside of Calder.
I can't remember from what it was at Super 2. I believe it's on the inside, if memory serves me correctly, from how the track design is done. So you're on the inside to be able to protect that line into the first turn, which I guess is what you sort of want to be doing.
Yeah, the good thing about being on the inside of the circuit is that when you start, you don't actually have to get the best start. You just need to stick about all the way up to the B pillar of the car next to you, and then you've got right of way for the corner.
Yeah, essentially you command a bit of space. In other words, you protect your inside line, and you allow yourself, or basically command a bit of space to make sure you can get round the corner side by side with your opponent. Well, speaking of opponents, point standings, most important part of the night when we get to have a look at how everything is going with regards to the Supercars Championship. So after round 5, Stenberg still leads the series, 1,476 points, but he had his lead trimmed a little bit by Will Devenish taking honours in race 1, but then pretty much handed all that advantage back in race 2 by virtue of his penalties as well. So he still leads the series. The important thing for the field, though, was that the winning streak got snapped. Brenton Foley's win has brought him right back into contention, with Devenish having a couple of bad races in the last 2 rounds. Pukekohe race 2 was a disaster for him, and then the penalties at the second race in Barbagallo has brought the pair of them back together. Mitch Hathaway's not here tonight, but he's the leading Ford for Lou Simsport Team HDS. Our man that we mentioned had jumped up the order a little bit, Termo as well, is right in the thick of it as well. All the way down to some of the newcomers are starting to make their move as well. So people such as Liam Spencer are now breaking into our points graphics there for the first time. Hans, let's take a look at our driver in focus this week, which is Pete Savage from Loose Simsport. Those cars have undergone a little bit of a livery change mid-season. They were all pretty much pink coloured, so now there's a couple of different colours out there. Good for us, we get to distinguish between the different cars. Pete made his debut last year in the Bathurst race. Last year, his best result was 4th on 2 occasions. He's run all 7 races up to tonight in the series, 6 top 10s, and his best result was his first podium at Barbagallo last round. He's also been moonlighting a little bit in GT3 and picked up a win out of the Istanbul race approximately a week and a half ago. So he's not doing too bad. He's a pretty good recruit. Lewis Wedding didn't waste any time snapping him up, did he?
No, not at all. Peter Savage, another Perth native, racing at his home track at Barbagallo last round. I was going to say last week. No. A week doesn't go that slowly. But last round, he got a stellar 3rd position. Fantastic to see, and he's continuing that form into GT3s as well. He's really motoring on that Loose Simsport GT3 AMG Mercedes, and he did get the win at the Istanbul circuit. And a very commanding win as well. So maybe he's looking for shades of that sort of form tonight, Pete Savage. But he is a very handy steerer, I should say. And Lewis Wedding, definitely this was one of the great signings for this season.
Yeah, just having a look at where he is on the qualifying standings as well. I don't think he did all that well on the session that just went. I think he may have actually dropped out of the server. So we've only got 17 in there where we had 19 in the order not too long ago. So I'm just struggling to remember where he came in that order. But he was out there circulating, and he was right in the thick of it with all those times in that qualifying session. We flip over and have a look at the team's points. And the team's points again, it's still CRE Race Engineering with the advantage, but they did take a little bit of a hit through Will Devenish's couple of penalties that he incurred, and Foley taking a race win and a podium in the second race. And that margin has closed down something enormous. It's not very much now. It's about 160 odd points there or thereabouts. The leading forward team is Loose Simsport, which is the team of Zach Ross and Pete Savage. And then back to the CRE Motorsport team, which is the one that Cam Rutledge heads up. Still a long way to go in the team's championships, but the point standings as they get further down the order are quite petering off quite drastically, given where some of those guys finish. But it's about time we had a bit of a look at our defending champions from last year. So the PBF Race Engineering crew, currently second in the standings overall. Last year, it was pretty much the Foley and Boak show, heading right up until the last couple of rounds. With Phil Boak having led that championship for the better part of the season, with Foley having a very poor start to last year's championship, it took until the Bathurst round basically for it to flip on its head. And even right up until the last round of the season, Will Devenish managed to leapfrog Phil Boak for second place overall in the championship, but they still had a good haul of points on the board. They still managed to finish the team's championship at the pointy end, and they're up there fighting again, not too far out of first place at the moment. Even Phil and Foley themselves have said, look, I think we're pretty much almost going to go for a team's championship this year. It's very, very difficult to catch the likes of Will and Kurt at the moment, but last round proved that they could do it.
Yeah, that's right. It's just showing that Foley still has some pace in him, and he's able to capitalise when the other cars in front of him aren't able to take the win and put a clean race in. But Boak, I guess a bit of a dramatic fall from grace as we consider his last season. He did get a few wins last season, and he did lead the championship for a long time. And it's just a totally different fortunes for him compared to 2019 season. However, he did miss a few races, so he wasn't able to score any points for the races that he didn't turn up to. However, they are looking for another team's championship, so let's see if they're able to get it in the end. But it's still a long way to go in the season, and we don't know what can happen.
And even Phil, by his own admission, said precisely that to me a couple of weeks ago, that even he's struggling to get the kind of practice in that he needs to get in order to be competitive and up the pointy end of the field. He is in the Pro A category, which is the one we run no assists, but he's still finding himself fighting away in some of the mid-pack with guys around him that are, in Pro B. So he's just not had that time to be able to click and run at the pointy end as he would like. But the team's championship is pretty much their focus for the time being. Once the Calder Park round tonight is over, the next stop on the calendar is North Queensland, the North Queensland 200. We return to the longer distance format of the racing, and that presented some interesting racing last year. We saw cars up on two wheels, we saw cars on their roofs, we saw cars that were on fire, and we saw a race win for Brenton Foley at the end of it all. So it definitely was a fun circuit to go to for a longer format race up at Townsville. And then we sort of start getting around the halfway point, Darwin and Townsville becoming the midpoint of our season.
Yeah, the Townsville circuit, like any street circuit, very tight and technical and very difficult to get into a rhythm. However, a good endurance test, the longer sprint race format, or feature race format, I should say. And off to Hidden Valley for the round after that. A very interesting round. I think we can both say, having raced there in Super 2, that was a very interesting round. So we'll see what sort of moves will be made into turn one. A long sweeping left-hander from pretty much banging on the rev limiter at 275 k's an hour in sixth gear, straight into second gear. So we'll see what happens there. But right now we're focused on what's going to happen at this sweeping right-hander into turn one at Calder Park Raceway.
Yeah, we certainly are. Just waiting on drivers to get themselves sorted and together. There's not too much longer to go until we go racing. We've just seen that there's a few little gremlins, I think, going on at the moment, with some of the drivers are just sort of vanishing and appearing. I think that's probably some server-side settings that are relaying back to us. And looks like we're just about ready to go. Session has ticked over to race. Let's join the action as the timer gets ready to go. 37 laps of duration. If you're going to split your pit strategy down the middle, you'll be wanting to come in somewhere towards the lap 18 to 20 mark. We saw plenty of drivers doing exactly that, splitting the race in half. We did see a few drivers run long and a few drivers decide to go the short route during their pit stops at Barbagallo. So we will see a mixture tonight, and it's just a matter of where you feed back into this traffic. As we said at the beginning of the night, the pit entry feeds in straight off the racing line, and essentially the pit lane exit feeds back onto the racing line as well. So that's one thing we probably didn't cover, Hans, is getting onto the race circuit from pit lane could be tricky if you're coming out into traffic.
Yeah, it feeds into the critical moment of the braking zone into turn 1. But meanwhile, first race of the evening, 37 laps. Pole position goes to Will Devenish, and pole position is on the inside of the circuit, so hopefully he'll be looking to stick with Kurt Stenberg, who is in second place. They round out the front row of the grid again this season. Then we got a new face onto the second row of the grid. That is Luke Rosella with a stellar time, and then Brenton Foley, another established face in AMS Oz racing. Then we've got Turmo back there in 5th position, followed by Colin Warwick, rounding out the third row of the grid. 4th row of the grid is Liam Spencer and Brendan Ross. So good to see Rossi up there firmly in the top 10. And 4th row of the grid will be Lime Mitch. Pretty solid effort from him. Did try and focus on getting the draft off Rhodey off the final corner. And Steve Burko, and the very distinctive Volvo for Builders Traffic Management in 10th place. Rounding out the top 10, Scott Stancliffe on the cusp of the top 10 in 11th. Great improvement from him we've seen in Super 2 and in Supercars. And Phil Boak, not accustomed to seeing him this far down compared to last season, but this season's been a bit of a struggle. Then two of the loose SimSport cars, Lewis Wedding and Zach Ross. They will form the 7th row of the grid. Then it is, I believe that's Cam Rutledge, is it? Yep, Cam Rutledge in 15th. And Wayne Spencer in 16th, and another one of the Volvos. Very distinctive colours as well in that Volvo. Then we've got the 9th row of the grid, Dwayne Davies in a Holden product. He's still pretty dark about driving a Holden product. But in 18th place, I believe that is Rhodey. In 18th, the PBF Great Northern Satellite, should say Red Bluff Brewers Motorsport. It's changed since last time. That is news to me. And we've got the Scuderia Alitalia car of Brian Walsh off from 19th position.
Yeah, shame we haven't got Glenn Miles in there at the moment. He did have some dramas during the practice session. Actually had a Windows update come along, and doesn't look like he's been able to get back in time to take the race start.
Sorry, I want to make a correction. I apologise. Zach Ross is not in 14th. It's actually Pete Savage.
I was about to say, I was going to let you go there, see if you corrected yourself, but you didn't. Now, there's a couple of drivers that are out of position here. Have a look at where Colin Warwick is and Brendan Ross. Now, that's a little bit of a tricky thing. I can see what Warwick's intending to do here. If he gets a good start, he's going to try and go right down the middle. But it's allowed him to stay there. Lights are on. 37 laps. The first race of the Calder Twin Sprint is away. Good reaction time, Will Devenish, and he got a jump, and look at Kurt Stenberg. He's going to get swamped, and Scott Stancliffe, it looks like he's on the grass as well. Stenny is going to get probably beaten to turn number 1 here by Luke Rosella's Volvo. Brenton Foley tried to run it around the outside of him, but couldn't make it stick. Warwick has made the most of pointing his car down the middle of the circuit for that start. Has moved up to P5, but it's all plain sailing so far for the pole sitter. Although he is now starting to come under a little bit of pressure from
a bit
Kurt
of contact
Stenberg
at the back. That was Lewis Wedding and Dwayne Davies there. Dwayne Davies off in the boonies.
Yep, let's have a look at what happened to D2. Bring it up on the replay. So, poor getaway. Oh, look, there was a bit of a logjam back there as well. Everybody was getting into each other. I think that looks like it might have been Liam Spencer having a little bit of a problem back there as well. And look, I think actually Scott Stancliffe's been having a little bit of lag issues. Let's see what happened to Wedding and D2. Oh, D2 lost it. D2 just gassed it up a little bit too much, and that's the resulting contact, those guys getting into each other.
Meanwhile, at the head of the race, Kurt Stenberg is on the back of Will Devenish. He's gone to the inside. He's going to make a move into turn 1. Big, deep breath under brakes. Let's see how he goes here. TTR Commodore firmly down the inside. Let's see if he tries the block pass down here. No, a bit of slide there.
Well, that's upset Will Devenish, though, enormously, though. Oh, and Rosella nearly climbed over the rear quarter panel of that Holden as well. That was very, very close run thing. Just that little mid-corner wiggle from Stenberg just meant that Devenish ended up just having to check up and run a little bit wider of the ideal line and made him vulnerable to Rosella. Now
Yep.
Stenberg's got to stay straight and he's got to leave a bit of room for Will, which he does. Can he hang it round the outside? Yes, he can.
It's
He's
not
going to have a
typically
high
a place
ground.
we see people pass, but
Definitely
meanwhile,
not. Oh, they're in the grass as well. Steady's going to have a go down the inside here, and Rosella's wants a piece of this as well.
oh, they better be careful because they're exposing themselves to the second row of the grid. That's Rosella and Boak. Meanwhile, Phil Boak, sorry, not Boak, that's
Foley.
Foley. I'm thinking of Boak because why I'm talking about Boak, he's actually up to 6th position. He did just lose 5th to Mitch McGovern. Sorry, Lime Mitch. That is his name, though.
There he is in the background. Look at
And they're having a big battle into turn 1 right now.
Yeah, 2 by 2 go the animals. Rosella having to defend from Foley. Let's go back to that other battle. There's the over and under as Phil Boak gets the move done on Lime Mitch, who has moved forward a couple of spots.
Oh,
since the beginning of the
Devenish
race.
climbed over the back of Stenberg, and now he's going to drop back to 4th.
So that was something that we didn't quite see happening as we were watching the battle unfolding ahead. So Devenish has gone from the front row to the back of the second row in a matter of minutes. Let's have a look at this again. So down the inside, Stenberg was defending
Rosella's
turn
made a
1.
mistake as well, so he's off the road. We'll get back to that in a moment, but we'll just watch Will Devenish. He climbs over the back of the right rear tyre of Stenberg, I believe.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
right, yeah, in the middle of the chicane.
Tried to stay around the outside and just couldn't make it happen. And you're right, Rosella has dropped out of this battle. He's actually dropped behind Lime Mitch. Phil Boak made a mistake as well because he's gone all the way back. Look at this, Steve Burko's just set the fastest lap of the race, a 57 flat, and Burko's now right in this paddle pack as well. Look, 3 wide going into turn 1. Settle down, boys. It's only lap 4.
That is unbelievable. There's still 33
Oh,
laps
there's
in this race to
contact.
go.
There's contact between Lime Mitch and Phil Boak. Colin Warwick sticking his nose in here as well. Lime Mitch has got a little bit of a tap as he got all out of sorts as they went round that chicane. Look at this, and look who's coming through like a pair of sharks. Here come the loose SimSport cars as well.
I see what's happened with Luke Rosella. He's actually had some lag issues, so
Oh, we
that's
saw-
ended up lagging him off the road, and not all his fault there, I'd say.
No, we saw that at Barbagallo as well, and it was absolutely heartbreaking when it happened because he was in such a strong position and it cost him quite a number of spots, and I think he actually appeared inside Foley's car at one point.
Course steering damage to Foley. Look at this, Colin Warwick. He's going for the defensive line. He's trying to block off Luke Rosella. Luke Rosella just a little bit on the grass, kicks up a little bit of dirt. Warwick moves back to the outside. Rosella's got the move done.
I think Warwick let him go there. I think Warwick just realised he needed to settle down and let it go. Meanwhile, Pete Savage has put a move on Steve Burko for 7th place as well. So it's all action stations here. So many things happening. We can't keep track of what's going on. The top 10, there's all sorts of little battle groups that have just started to unfold. There's a group of 4 ahead of this group of 4. And then look at the train behind. I think is that Liam Spencer? No, it's Cam Rutledge. Cam Rutledge heading, what's that, Wayne Spencer. Termo, Lime Mitch, and all those. Here goes Wayne Spencer. Big dive under brakes into turn 6. Manages to pull it up. Job done. We saw him do that at Pukekohe on Scott Stancliffe and get the job done, and that's a brilliant pass.
Now we've got 3 CRE cars together at the final hairpin.
Yeah. Big loser out of all the CRE cars so far has got to be this pair, Termo and Liam Spencer. They were well and truly up the field. Look at that, Termo down 8 spots from where he started. Liam Spencer down 7 spots. They've had a really wretched opening 6 laps.
But their loss was Phil Boak's gain. Mover and shaker of the race so far, Phil Boak up 8 spots
Yeah,
from
completely
12th
inverse.
position.
Completely inverse to what this pair are at the moment.
So Phil Boak at the moment, he's just running all alone in 4th, but he's going to have Luke Rosella coming up on the back of him very soon.
I was going to say, what's Phil Boak's times like at the moment there, Hans? Is he catching the guys in front or is he losing time to the leading trio?
He's actually losing time. He's actually got a 57.17 compared to Foley's 56.8. 56.68 for Will Devenish, and the last lap round for Kurt Stenberg was actually the fastest lap, 56.58.
There it is again, 56.494, so Stenberg lowers the bar again. Devenish 1.1 seconds behind Foley, another 1.3 behind that. Boakes sets his best lap that time around, 57 flat. Rosella did a 56.8 though. Commands a bit of space on the inside. Phil Boak locks up, going deep into turn 1, and he's going to lose a couple. He's going to lose a couple of spots here. He's going to lose one to Colin Warwick. He might also lose one to Pete Savage, but Savage not close enough under brakes to get the move done into the chicane. But he's vulnerable now, Phil Boak.
Well, he did get a ripper start, but now I think he's just struggling for a bit of pace at the moment compared to the cars immediately in his vicinity. And Pete Savage has shown himself to be a paceman on occasion, and he gets really close to the back of the PBF Commodore there.
Yeah, closes in quite a lot. Lewis Wedding hasn't been able to make the same sort of gains that Pete Savage has for the moment, but he's still there or thereabouts. It's 2 cars back. And between the pair of them is Steve Burko's Volvo, and then Mitch in the Mustang is trailing Lewis Wedding. Just staying within that draft. Poor lap for Boak that time around. As you saw, he got a little bit mugged. Ran off the road at turn number 1. Now let's see if Luke Rosella can actually make a little bit of ground on the leaders.
Late apex there.
Yeah, bad apex. Oh, and Boak's off the road again. Boak's off the road again. Oh, and that's mighty, mighty close. I'm not sure if Phil Boak got a bit of a whack there from Lion Mitch as they went through the opening corner. Let's pick that up on the replay and see if we can see what happened to Phil Boak there. Here it is from the roof cam. As they go into turn 1. Did he outbrake himself? Didn't sound like he came down the gears quickly enough. Just plain outbroke himself. But this was the bit I was interested in as he decided to stray left on the thing. Yep, just a little bit of a nudge.
Bit of a glancing blow there. Meanwhile, fastest lap of the race again for Kurt Stenberg. He's into the 56.3s with a 56.390.
So the lap time continues to tumble. Devenish, though, surprisingly, managed to take a little bit of margin out of Stenberg on that lap. So I got a funny feeling maybe honours on the fastest lap may have gone to Devenish after Stenberg crossed the line.
DNF for Dwayne Davies, meanwhile. He's just DNF'd on the 7th lap of the race, so last lap by.
Yeah, D2 has been having a few dramas with his back as well, from what I'm led to believe too. So hopefully it's not a medical related issue for D2 and that we can see him back for the second race. A bit further behind, you got Wayne Spencer now coming under some serious threat from Liam Spencer through the chicane. Now, this has been an interesting battle that we've been watching for a number of weeks, not just in Supercars, but in Super 2 as well.
Oh, he cuts the corner there,
yeah,
come on.
And he cuts the corner there and he's realised what he's done. He's fallen in back behind. Father's starting to get a little bit aggrieved that son is starting to be a bit more of a better racer than he is, and I think he's going to be doing everything in his power to keep that Commodore behind him right now. Although the draft down this front straight is pretty powerful. Liam's putting it to good use and now decides, I want to have a little bit of a go. Is he close enough? Lane leaves him the space. So he's going to try the over and under though, but Liam's
Someone's
away
off
to
the
that.
road. I think that's Scott Stancliffe off the road.
Yeah, there was somebody off the road back there. It might have been Stancliffe. Again, yeah, another one of the drivers that's having a few lag issues at the moment, I have been noticing. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what we saw. Just getting a little bit out of sorts there. Back end of the racing field is sort of stretched out a bit now. Termo's made an awful mistake somewhere as well. We were singing his praises in qualifying and he's gone right
Pete
out
Savage
of
nearly around at the final hairpin. He's just come around trying to gas it up off the final corner. He's going to lose a spot to Burko for sure, and maybe to Lewis Wedding before this straight's over.
Yeah, Wedding's got a nice draft as well. Here he goes, ranging up onto the back of the number 88, is the number 89, but decides to pull out of it. So a moment for Pete Savage at the final corner. Here it is. This looks like he maybe got a little bit of... Yep, just put the power on a little bit too much. Good save though. Just didn't lose too much time, but he did lose one position out of that.
And just when I saw that happen, I was going to mention that he was actually he's actually up 8 spots. So now he's only up 7 spots. He did start 14th. Oh, Burko off the road.
And both understeered off at turn 6.
Yeah, a bit earlier on the brakes there, boys. But Burko and Pete, they've been having a good battle so far. They've been exchanging positions. And Lewis Wedding, he's got the watching brief. He's got the team car ahead of him. It's interesting because in this series, we've got the old adage, don't hit your teammate, but there's also don't hit your father or don't hit your son as well.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things like that at the moment. Here's our onboard. Oh, I was about to say, I was just looking at the opportunity there that Pete Savage was starting to create for himself. I thought he was about to go down the inside at turn number 1, but then he backed out of it right as we cut to our onboard cameras to see what was going on.
He thought better of it because he was at the
threshold of the braking point, yeah.
So
let's have a listen
nowhere
on
near
throttle.
far enough.
That's the way you take the chicane, nice and flat, nice and straight as well. Not too much wheel work going through that chicane.
Burko very late on the brakes there, much earlier for Pete Savage. You see the concertina effect there, just approaches up there, takes a lot of curb. Really straight lines that little
Oh, there's a
Short
mistake
shoot.
though. There's a mistake gone deep at the at the final corner. Does that allow his teammate behind? No. His teammate's decided to take the bait, decided to pit. This is very, very early. Lewis Wedding deciding he wants to get into some clean air. Locks it up on the pit lane entry though.
I think his tyres will look like 50-cent pieces after that. But let's see what Lewis Wedding can do. He's just, I don't know, about 5 or 6 laps before the halfway point of the race.
Yeah, it's very, very early. So I think just being caught up behind the teammate and the other cars in that train, he's going to try and look to jump them, but he's going to take a little bit of pain a bit further down the line. This is not one of those circuits where the corners are long and loaded either though, Hans. I mean, the worst corner of the lot is turn 1 and the last turn where you've got a lot of loading on that outside left set of tyres. The 2 chicanes in the middle, they don't really take very much. This one here is essentially flat, so there's really no pressure on the tyres at all. So it might not be so bad, but we'll be interested to see what happens. Where's he feed back in?
And he's going to feed back in about 18th position at the moment. He's actually a lap down.
Yeah, so this is what we suspected. So coming in, you're going to be careful about going a lap down. He's going to feed back on sort of...
In front of Phil Boak, actually.
In front of Phil Boak, which is not that far up the road, actually not that far behind the battle that he was in to begin with anyway. So essentially he's in the same, almost in the same spot as to where he was when he came in, albeit a lap down.
Now, here's something interesting that's happened. Will Devenish has dropped back to 3rd for some reason. He was right on the back of
he's behind Foley
Stenberg. And now he's behind Foley.
Did he have a poor last lap?
So the last lap he did was a 1:01.53. So shocker of a lap for Devenish. We'll have to see if we can get something on replay.
Where was it on these? If you have a look into the live races for me, whereabouts did he drop that? Was it through the middle sector or through the
So
final
I'm just
corner?
watching the replay now. He outbraked himself and he went off the end of the road at turn 1.
That'll do it.
And rejoined as Foley was just about to pass him.
Well, he's just put the move on Foley now going into turn number 1. So that little scuffle and off-track excursion has cost him, better part of 4 seconds. He was within a half a second of Kurt Stenberg up until that little incident. Now having got past Foley, what can he lay down? He'll still be able to see Stenberg up the road. That's interesting too because it's brought Luke Rosella back into this battle as well. He's been quietly chipping away. And Colin Warwick is still very much in the picture as well. What's Warwick's times that he's been doing at the moment? He's got a best of a 56.6, which was the last lap around.
So that's Luke Rosella who's done a 56.6. The best lap for Warwick was a 56.8 and his last lap round was a 57.17.
There we go. It's immediately apparent with Devenish having gotten past Foley, he's already started to pull a bit of margin, although he still has lost a bit of time to Stenny that lap around.
He needs to get a wriggle on because Stenny's 4.5 seconds up the road.
He's going to have to find somewhere to make it, but he's not going to do it doing Foley things like that, getting sideways off of the chicane. So the only man that's taken service so far is Lewis Wedding. How's he tracking at the moment? So he's still a lap down, but if we go and pick up the action where he is.
So his last lap round for Wedding was a 56.22, so he might be half a chance to get somewhere. Brian Walsh as well. He's done a 1:01.76, so he's either made a mistake or he's taken service.
I think he's probably made a mistake there. Colin Warwick in, we're seeing him back a shot, so there he is trundling down the lane, so he's come in to take service. Now, Steve Burko in back a shot coming in as well, so a few drivers still coming in before the half distance marker. I'm wondering if Colin Warwick, he's gone a lap down. We've got to keep an eye on some of these drivers too, Hans, to see if they actually take some tyres or not. Let's go have a look and see what's going on with Steve Burko when he comes in. Let's keep an eye on this. Because he was in that train that was at the beginning with Lewis Wedding and Pete Savage. Whether they just take a little splash of fuel. I believe there's a mandated from memory, a mandated 2 tyres that have to be taken. So it could be a pair of fronts, could be a pair of rears.
Working side only.
Working side only. And they're the tyres that are happening, so that's good. So that
the invisible pit crew there. It's like a methanol fire. It's invisible.
You can't see anything. And all these drivers starting to go a lap down now. Devenish started to pull that margin back though. Have a look. It's now under 4 seconds. Foley's still holding third over Rosella. Lime Mitch, through all of this, has moved up into P5 with all the other cars ahead of him coming in for service.
Stenberg, meanwhile, Stenberg, meanwhile, is actually ranging up on the back of lap traffic. He's just gotten past Brian Walsh and he's approaching Brody. Brody gets out of the way smartly there, doesn't go on the grass this time.
And here
Good job, Brody.
And here come all the other drivers behind as well that are on the lead lap. They'll have to negotiate this traffic as well. Bit of a shame Stenberg, he didn't have the opportunity to take that like he did at Barbagallo, where he was coming up on some traffic and decided to take service. But Devenish decides he's going to do it, so he just ran straight on, as you saw back. So, oh, there's an incident at the final corner, at the first corner. Something's gone on down there. Who's that down the road? It's Turmo and it's Brenton Ross. What on earth has gone on here between those guys? So we just saw it as we were watching Kurt Stenberg coming onto the main straight. So these two are running line astern.
Will Devenish is in the pit lane, by the way.
Yep, and who got into who? So this will be the interesting one. So Turmo's defence, we'll look at it from Brenton Ross' point of view. Oh, Rossi couldn't stop the car. Rossi could not stop the car. Ran straight into the back of Turmo. So that is effectively, ended both of their races, but it's really hampered both of their races. Rossi's given the position back, but cold comfort, those guys are, well, Rossi's now actually 2 laps down and Turmo's 1 lap down, which means Rossi'd actually come in for service already as well.
Will Devenish taking service, and he's just about to get dropped off the jacks, and Pete Savage, meanwhile, is being lifted on the jacks.
There you go, Stenberg, race leader, goes through and just gets out, or gets past Will Devenish as he comes out of the pit lane.
And Will Devenish is going to end up in traffic here. That's no way to rejoin.
And Foley's ranging up on the back of him too now. He's going to get blue flags for Brenton Foley as well, so this has not worked out for Will Devenish at all.
Definitely need clear air to make the gain.
Yep, and this is awkward. This is very, very awkward. Now Devenish is trying to race Foley here. Now I know what he's trying to do here. He's trying to make sure he doesn't get stung by being held up behind a car that is essentially fighting to stay ahead of on the track anyway, but all this is giving Kurt Stenberg a massive free kick at the moment. Luke Rosell looks like he's come in for some service as well, because he was behind Foley last time we saw, and he is now, was he down the order? He's now down to 8th place, and here they all come. Oh, Rhodey came in as well. Rhodey came in ahead of Brenton Foley, and have a look at this. How's this for team orders?
Team orders. So, PBF Pro-Am driver, he gives up and makes way for Team Boss.
He obviously wants that seat next year.
He says, I like my seat, I like my job, I want to keep it, boss.
He's not being paid, is he? You said job.
I mean, it is a job of sorts, isn't it?
Well, for him it is anyway.
I'm sure he takes it very seriously. He's very professional with his... he uses his race gloves and his race boots, Rhodey. We love him to bits.
Oh.
But we know, and I know why he does that. It's because he's itching to get back into a race car, and I hope that he gets back into a race car soon, because he used to race Formula V, and he wasn't the fastest out there, but he did have a lot of fun.
Yes, that's all about having the fun with those cars as well. I do miss seeing those guys go around to the Vic State Series, which we hope is back in action at the end of July, but we still haven't heard anything. Hoping by the end of June we'll at least hear what's going on. Stenberg's going long, 56.9. Liam Spencer coming out of the pits, lets the race leader go by.
Luke Rosella is just 3 seconds behind Will Devenish, and we've got the PBF car of Foley coming out.
Yep, let's go and pick him up.
And Rosella gets the undercut.
Yep, there it is.
Great
down
move
the inside.
there, fantastic.
So well done, and that move happened probably about 2-3 laps ago, where Rosella came in. Oh, they both kick up a little bit of dirt on the outside of turn 1 as well. That'll be an interesting battle all the way to the flag. So Foley currently 9th, Rosella currently 8th, and then where's Will Devenish? He's a bit further up the road in 7th, so he's managed to stay ahead of this pair.
Trio of cars in the pits. That's Lime Mitch, Wayne Spencer, and Cam Rutledge. Lime Mitch is on the move again.
Yep, he's actually gotten up to inside the top 3 before he's taken his service. That now leaves Phil Boak in P2, Scott Stancliffe in P3, yet to stop. I want to see what Will Devenish's time is like, though, here, Hans, compared to what the race leader's doing. And a 57.0 is not going to do it. Stenberg was doing a 56.9 the last time around, so not making the gains that he needs to make here to really get close to the back of that number 47.
Now, Luke Rosella, he's just done his fastest lap of the race on that lap by. That was a 56.575. I'll just check in live races to make sure I'm not talking out the wrong way of my body. And that's right, so a 56.575 for Rosella.
He's starting to pull away from Foley
Best
now
final
as well.
sector, actually, 13.836 for the final sector, purple final sector.
Doing really, really well in the number 5. Right, where's our race leader? Well, there's Phil Boak. It looks like he's preparing for a stop this lap. Stenberg continues to go along. Yellow flag, sector 1. We've got an instant, we've got a car off the road somewhere down here. Looks like we might have had a car going off at turn 1, just out of shot at the moment. That yellow's
Could have been Turmo, possibly.
Possibly again. Turmo's still in this race, but he's the last car on the timing sheets, and he's actually gone 3 laps down now, so that incident between him and Brendan Ross has really come home to roost. So here's Stenberg. Now I thought I saw Will Devenish just in back of shot. Yeah, there he is. He's albeit a lap down on the race leader, but waiting for the opportunity for this man to come in to see what he can do.
So that actually was Turmo that went off the road. That was a 1:02.19 lap for him.
Here's Devenish.
It was a 43-second first sector, so that was either him or Brian Walsh, I'm not sure.
Well, there's Turmo actually getting out of the way of teammates coming through. Fastest lap of the race, Luke Rosella, 56.360, so he's definitely got his skates on here. He's not given up pursuit. Oh, there's an incident. Foley's off the road. Foley's outbraked himself going into turn 1. He was in amongst that traffic with Turmo, and he was in behind Luke Rosella. He hasn't dropped a spot to Colin Warwick, though, although Turmo's getting blue flags to get himself out of the way here. But a mistake for Foley. Let's go on board.
Now what will be really telling here is the sound of the gears and the brakes. Does he lock a brake? How does he get it all wrong? Probably way too late on the brakes there. Couldn't hear any locking.
Yeah, it didn't look like it was locking. There's a couple of bits of smoke there, but it didn't look like there was anything obvious that he did wrong there, Foley. Just the car didn't want to pull up in time. I did notice as well, it looks like maybe he was slightly distracted by Rosella, just sort of lagging there, and the race leader is in. There he is in back of shot, going trundling down the pit lane. So the race leader is in.
Luke Rosella, another lag issue. He's done a 59-second lap there.
He's dropped down to 5th place now as well. Sorry, he was in 5th place. He just moved up the order 1 spot. So we're going to be watching that with interest. That's going to be something that he's going to be really keen to resolve, I imagine, before he loses a really good result over something like this. We saw him on track for one at Barbagallo and ended up not getting the result that he wanted. He had a 6th place finish in race 1, which was spot on the money with what he wanted. And then he had a 12th place finish in the second race, albeit because of what happened to him halfway around the circuit. Now you're watching Kurt Stenberg rolling down the lane. Here comes Will Devenish, and there it is. There's Kurt Stenberg just on the left-hand side there. Up to speed is Devenish. Is he going to be able to round Stenberg up in time? The answer to that is no, but he's going to be a lot closer than probably what he expected to be.
It's pretty lucky for Devenish there because his lap times were not that great just after the pit stop, and he did come out in the traffic. And like you said, he's only less than a second behind. He's 9/10 behind Devenish, and he's got warm tyres, so he's half a chance to get up to the back of the TTR Commodore. But it's one thing to catch Stenberg, another thing to get past him. Yeah, he's got to make these warm tyres count while he's really got the means to do so. He's almost got one hand on the rear wing of that Commodore now. He's really ranging up closely, and look at him close up under brakes. So much more confidence. Warm brakes, warm tyres. A track full of confidence. How quickly has this margin closed up in the space of a couple of corners? Needs to get a good run out of here. Needs to get a good run through the final corner. No wheel spin.
Both
and he's firmly in the draft now. Is he going to dive down the inside? This would be the time to do it. If it's not now, it's never.
Fastest lap of the race on that particular occasion too, so he knew what he needed to do, and he seizes the opportunity now and goes down the inside at turn 1. Stenberg will leave him the space. He'll try and hang it round the outside and go the long way around, but he's on the wrong side for the next corner. Will leaves him the space that he needs to leave him, but at the end of the day, he gets the job done. Got to get the block pass on here. Got to make it happen. Plant your car in the apex. Arrest that momentum of the car behind you trying to make it happen. And he did just that. But Stenberg's decided to stick with him, and now Will needs to take the defensive line, but he doesn't do it. Race control issues, a penalty for Phil Boak, who
That's
just
for entering the pit lane, actually.
Yep, that's a pit lane speeding infringement. He was on pit road just as these two were duking it out down the main straight. Little bit of door handle banging through the final chicane. Stenberg now on the inside.
Go for the over and under.
Over and under. No, Devenish can't get the over and under happening though, and he's not quite. Is he quite close enough for a draft? He's managed to get a good exit and sticking with the number 47.
He's going to need to send it if he's going to be any chance of getting it back on new fastest lap of the race for Luke Rosella. That's about 300ths quicker than Devenish's fastest lap.
Here we go again, second verse,
Oh,
same as
here
the
we
first,
go.
ding, ding, ding. Oh, it's worse than the first verse. And it's on top of that, Devenish has lost out big time, committed too hard to turn one and could not pull the car up. I was about to say, I think Rosella might be looking at these two, hoping that they were going to trip over each other for a little bit longer, and then it might have allowed him to catch up to it. That might have just broken the camel's back for his point of view.
Now, what Devenish should have done, he should have effected the block pass really quickly. You should have just braked in the middle of the corner at the apex, just stamp on the brake, and then shoot the car out full throttle as straight as possible to get that block pass going.
Yeah, the block pass is a very, very fine art form. You've got to sort of get your car, sort of slide it up in front of the car that you need to be there. Just basically put your car where your opponent wants their car to be and force them to check up. And he tried to get that move done, but he just couldn't pull it up in time.
It also helps to give a little bit of brake there, but I don't like putting the block pass on people because it can go wrong very easily. If they go into the back of you, you're spun.
No, it works at certain corners, I think I've found. A couple of corners at Winton are very, very good for that sort of thing. The last
Actually, a
couple
lot of
corners
hairpin
especially.
corners it tends to work at.
It's almost like the slide job in NASCAR. Remember they talk about the slide job, sliding
You
up
just
in front of
slide
your
up
opponent.
the lane in front of the other car.
Essentially, that's what the block pass actually is. So there's your top three in shot. Stenberg, Devenish, and then Luke Rosella. Jesus, Brenton Foley faded a little bit, hasn't he? Ever since they came out of the pit stops, he has not been able to go with Rosella's Volvo.
I think Rosella's just broken the back of Foley at the moment. He's just escaped him. And he's looking to range up on the back of Devenish.
Is Foley vulnerable to Colin Warwick here, Hans? Let's have a look at the times that they're doing. So Foley's last lap around was a 56.6 and Warwick's was a 57.2. So judging by the last lap pace, definitely not. But in the last lap there for Foley, 56.8 to Warwick's 57.1. So not at this point in time. Warwick hasn't got the pace to stay with it and challenge Foley. But I was a bit worried there for a minute that Foley was going the wrong direction.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been ideal for Foley, especially fighting for a team's championship. Speaking of the team's championship, Phil Boak getting the drive-through penalty probably doesn't help either.
No, and
Kurt Stenberg, fastest lap of the race, last lap round.
Lyle Mitchell, also a non-finisher in this particular one as well, and that looks like that happened about 5 laps ago.
That may have been him off the end of the front straight.
Very possible. Maybe that yellow flag coming up about 5 laps ago. It sounds about right. This man's gone quietly about his business. Steve Burko's done pretty well to get himself up to P6. 56 flat for Kurt Stenberg now. So now just starting to pull that margin away. Burko's doing pretty well to hold Lewis Wedding at bay here, who's actually ahead of Pete Savage now through the sequence of stops. Remember that Wedding was one of the drivers that took the very, very early gamble to come in. It's about lap 13 or 12, I think it was, that he came in and took service. We'll be wondering to see how his tyres are as they get a bit closer toward the end of this race. A little bit of a moment there, just going wide at the first corner. And behind Wedding, Pete Savage, who's in between them is the lapped Brendan Ross. And then Stancliffe's done pretty well to hang on to a berth inside the top 10 here, having started outside the 10. He'll be pretty pleased with that. And then Wayne Spencer's actually now ahead of his son, so wow, he'll be grinning from ear to ear if he can keep that up for another couple of laps.
That will be a topic of conversation at the dinner table.
That will definitely be one that I think he will not let him live up for the next 30 minutes or so, or at least until they get to the end of tonight's second race.
Now, Luke Rosella, he's actually pretty consistent with his pace. He just did a 56.3 last lap by. His best lap was a 56.26. And last lap by for Devenish was actually not that good. It was about a 56.8. So
still quicker than Stenberg though, so that margin was 2.2 seconds. It has come down a bit. So even though Devenish had a poor lap, he was still a fraction quicker than Kurt Stenberg. I don't think this battle for second place is over just yet. I still think there might be another sting in the tail here. What do you think?
Well, I reckon the Volvo is going pretty well at the moment, so we'll see what Rosella can do. He's shown himself to be straight on the pace already, actually. And especially at Calder Park being a short circuit, he is even closer to the front guys.
Not quite close enough to pick up the draft just yet. Times 56.5 for Devenish, 56.5 for Rosella, but fractionally in Rosella's favour.
Now, there's about 4 laps to go in this race.
Yeah, this is lap 33, so this will be the fifth last lap to go.
So it's 4 laps to go. Will Rosella catch Devenish? We're going to eagerly wait.
Looks
This
very
is going to be his first podium as well.
Yeah, so measured and controlled as well, though, through the chicane. Just looked absolutely planted, that car. Did not move an inch. Did not divert 1 millimetre away from the racing line that it needed to be. I'm not sure if it's the look of the car. The car just appears generally lower to the ground than a lot of other cars, doesn't it? It just looks like it's just almost glued to the road.
It just looks pretty fantastic. It's riding all the bumps very well. I would even hazard a guess, is he running ABS or is he running traction control? We don't know.
No, from what we're told, he's not running any assists at all.
I've heard that as well, but we need to have a look. But his times are very solid at the moment, 56.6. And that actually is in Devenish's favour, so it may be too little too late for Luke Rosella.
I think it might be too little too late for Devenish as well, because Stenberg seems to have found a way through the lap traffic much better than what Will Devenish is encountering right now. Well, that being said, the Scuderia Alitalia car, Brian Walsh, is making it pretty easy for him, and did the same thing for Rosella as well. So good driving all round by those guys, but with only a handful of laps to go, I got the impression that the lap traffic is now going to start to play a little bit of a factor and just be a little bit of an insulation policy.
Sorry, Steve, bit of a lock brake for Luke Rosella. He's trying hard to range up on the back of Devenish. Devenish encounters some more lap traffic. That's Rhodey up next in the PBF something or other car.
Have a look at him chasing Rhodey across the road though as well, wanting to get the slipstream to try and do everything to stay ahead of that Volvo. That margin is still coming down. It's come down from about 1.2 to 1 second now, so definitely not giving up hope. Rhodey stays to the inside here. Oh, a bit awkward for Rosella. Forced him to go the long way round.
The PBF Red Bluff Brewers car.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to say the sponsor name because I called it something.
You finally got it right.
Oh, these sponsors, they change without me getting any notice.
Yeah, I was a bit concerned about that too. I didn't think there was supposed to be any mid-season sponsorship changes, aside from the retro round liveried cars, but somehow or another this one got snuck in, and I don't know if it's a sponsorship or if it's a mate or something that wants their business promoted, but one thing we've been working towards is trying to get a bit more promotion for some of the small businesses. A number of drivers have their own small businesses or work for small businesses, and a few of them, like Steve Burko, proudly promoting their workplaces on the cars that they work for. So,
we'll give it a plug now. Builders Traffic Management.
Yep, Brian.
Mick Fisher.
Mick Fisher and his
Formula V driver.
And Formula V. Very proud Collingwood supporter as well as Mick Fisher. That's the one thing I did remark when I saw his new car for the first time. I said, "Where's the Collingwood sticker on the front of the car, Mick?" You're watching the footy right now. I think when we checked in before, it was 4-1 at half time, so at quarter time, Collingwood's way, but we haven't had a look since.
Well, as the great Dennis Cometti would say, Collingwood, they were putting on a clinic tonight.
Well, we've got to have a look and see what's going on in between races, I think. Rosella's not giving up hope here.
It's hovering about the 1 second margin between...
It's under now.
Oh, just under.
Just under now. Oh, Stenberg's had a spin! Stenberg's had a spin! Oh, my goodness gracious me! Off the final corner on the second last lap. Now, was there traffic involved in that?
That is unbelievable.
And he's going to lose a spot to Foley too, is he? Yes, he is, or no, he's not. Well, what I'm more interested in is what happened to our race leader. So who it is? It's Cam Rutledge. Now, was there a tangle? Now, did he leave his space inside here, or what happened? Oh, I think he did it on his own. I'm going to rewind it back. I need to have a look at this again. I think he did this on his own.
Now let's have a look at the onboard shot.
Yep.
Look at that. No crash, no hit,
no nothing. All on his own.
Now, you know what he would have done? He would have gassed it up as he normally would have, but he had a bit more steering lock on. And as the thing bites, well, then it's all over Red Rover from there. Poor Stenberg.
Well, we're going to keep an eye on this one very quickly. Oh, and he's had another mistake there as well, so he's let Foley off the hook. Devenish is going to hang on ahead of Luke Rosella here. So Devenish is going to get an unlikely win, which about a minute ago didn't seem like it was going to happen. So he gets a second win for the season. Great finish for Luke Rosella. Volvo on the podium. First time I think we've seen that since Scott McLaughlin had a Volvo under his right foot. And Brenton Foley will also get another unlikely podium. Stenberg finishing 4th, be absolutely gutted with that second to last lap on the last corner.
Now, how about that battle for 2nd and 3rd place that actually turned out to be the battle for the lead at the end? And Luke Rosella, this kid has come on gangbusters. I mean, I don't know how old he is, but Luke Rosella, he's come on gangbusters so far. This is literally his 2nd race in AMS Oz competition, and he's already on the podium. Fantastic stuff.
He'll be up to Pro A, I think. They were talking about moving him up to Pro A after the last round, and I said, well, just give him another round just to see how he goes, given that he had a few dramas at Barbagallo, and I think now he's announced his arrival. Fantastic to see.
Well, there's a new name at the top of the board, or near the top of the board, I should say. New name on the podium.
Yep, certainly is. Good to see new podium representation. Colin Warwick, pretty respectable 5th place. Burko did pretty well to get it, make it 2 Volvos inside the top 6. In actual fact, Wayne Spencer's made it all 3 Volvos inside the top 10.
That is fantastic.
It's great to see.
Terry toweling caps all round. The Volvo drivers, I believe that's their tribal custom.
I believe so. The Loose Sim Sport cars came home for 7th and 8th. Stancliffe, that's his best result of the season, inside the top 10 for the very first time in the Stancliffe Motorsport VF, home in 9th. And, as we said before, Wayne Spencer making it 3 Volvos inside the top 10. Phil Boak was a non-finisher very late in that race. Not sure what happened to him, but we're very keen to see him recover in this second race coming up in the not-too-distant future. But the big talking, or 2 big talking points out of that one. One, the big tangle between Brendan Ross and Termo, who basically both of them went backwards from the outset. And then that last lap incident with, or second last lap incident with Kurt Stenberg. Just as you said, probably wanted to try and gas it up and get going, but just couldn't. When he tried to get on the power, the car disagreed with him. He was just on that wrong part of the circuit at the wrong time when he tried to apply the power, and round she went.
Yeah, I wonder what Kurt Stenberg is thinking. I don't want to be in his shoes right now, but I can only imagine that he may be very harsh on himself. I mean, we can't bring him into the commentary box to speak to him unless he shows up here on his own accord, but we've got a couple of our podium place getters.
Yeah, we'll go
and
third.
Hopefully we can find...
We're waiting to see our new man up here. We're just
yeah.
waiting to see where he is. We're just going to see if we can get him in here. But while we try and locate him, let's see how you go having a chat to our first and third place getters here, Hans.
All right, we'll start off with 3rd place, and he's just disappeared out of the booth. So we'll start off with, literally as I said that, and he's back in again. So Brenton Foley, good to see you on the podium. It could have possibly not been a podium, however, a bit late mistake for Kurt Stenberg, and you've now got a podium. Congratulations.
Yeah, I really don't know what happened there. That would surprise me a lot. I'll take it. But yeah, Luke's pace really surprised me a bit. I thought I might be able to actually battle him for 3rd originally, but getting caught up with some lap traffic and then on my pit entry I was a bit slow or a few things, and yeah, my in lap was not the best, which kind of gave him the position, and yeah, his pace really turned on in the end. So really good for him to get on the podium, but yeah, very surprised to be 3rd. I thought I was definitely 4th that race.
Good drive from yourself, though. You did show glimpses of pace. However, Phil Boak DNF, that doesn't help your team's chances.
No, it doesn't. I think he made a little mistake and killed the engine or something, which is really unfortunate. He's been struggling with time at the moment to kind of just get behind the wheel and do a bit of practice. So team's championship, we'll keep fighting. We'll do as much as we can, but we'll keep chipping away at it.
Congratulations on a stellar 3rd position. Almost from the jaws of a 4th position. Congratulations, Foley.
Thanks very much.
Off to a new man on the podium, Luke Rosella. 2nd outing in AMS Oz competition, and you're already on the podium. Congratulations, 2nd place.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I mean, I was had a bit of problems with the freezing I had back in at Tasmania. I think it was Barbagallo, and I was just hoping to fight on, not have that problem again. But yeah, I had some good pace. Great battle with Will Devenish. I thought I was going to get 3rd, but I saw Kurt Stenberg on the second to last lap spin. So yeah, very happy with the 2nd place.
Yeah, fantastic run there. But also not only were you showing glimpses of pace, but you were being unfortunately hampered by this freezing issue again.
Yeah, I think it's a graphical issue rather than a lag issue, like an internet lag. I think Pete Savage, has had some issues with it as well. He's in the chat, so I've tried everything except reinstall the whole game. So I might try that after this race. So, but yeah, still happy to get the second place.
Again, congratulations, Luke Rosella. Steve and I were singing your praises. Congratulations.
Thanks, guys. Can't wait for the second race.
Yeah, the man, you've basically dubbed him the kid now, haven't you? Almost like Craig Lowndes.
Well, I'm lucky I said the kid because he's got a high voice. So at least I don't sound stupid now.
You certainly don't.
He's probably a good young bloke, Luke Rosella. But Will Devenish, onto our race winner. Congratulations on a race win. Unlikeliest of race wins, but you'll take them any way they come.
Yeah, definitely. Take that way. Yeah, seas parted and thought, bloody hell, I'm going to get this win, and then realised I had Luke up my chuff, so decided to keep pushing that last lap. But yeah, good result.
Now, we saw you made a couple of mistakes, especially into turn one. What was the issue there? Just locking brakes, or were you just braking too late, or what was the issue?
Yeah, this particular track, there's a very small margin of error to get into turn one, and I'd get like 3 or 4 laps where I'd hit the apex absolutely perfectly. So I kept thinking, oh, let's go a little bit further in the braking zone. But yeah, that wasn't really working for me. So hopefully tidy that up second race.
And you managed to snatch a pretty fantastic victory. It left me speechless. You were managing to get words out of your mouth. I was just going, I've never seen such a thing in my life. But congratulations, Will.
Thank you.
So those are our top three. Race winner went to the race win went to Will Devenish. Second place for Luke Rosella in the 1998-esque looking Volvo, and third position went to Brenton Foley, which will hopefully help his chances in the team's championship.
Not only that, but it tries to keep him in step with the drivers' point standings with the man who we just won that race as well, Will Devenish. Foley and Devenish weren't separated by very much coming into tonight, and that gap grows just a little bit after tonight's race. But you know, if you finish behind your team, the person you're battling in the championship, you don't lose as much time and as much points as you would if you were several places behind them. So we'll let those guys run along and get themselves ready for the second race coming up, hopefully in about 5 or 10 minutes time. There's a few drivers that have just jumped out to sort a few things out, and then we'll get themselves back into the server, and away we'll go again for another 37 laps. In the meantime, probably a good idea to have a little bit of a look at what's coming up in Automobilista Australia over the next week or so. So the next broadcast that you will see, not only for Automobilista Australia, but also on this channel, the Outworld Broadcasting channel, is the GT3 World Series, the second last race of the World Series at the Autodromo di Monza. The Temple of Speed in Italy always has delivered some sort of unusual storyline, regardless or depending if your fancy is a one-lap sprint finish, if it's several accidents, or a high-profile multi-class race. It has delivered the works over the last couple of years whenever we've run it, and the second to last round of the GT3 World Series might actually be the first time in AMS Oz's endurance discipline that the championship is decided before we go to the final round, which is almost unheard of. We've been pretty lucky for 4 straight seasons that the World Series or GT3 or WEC, whatever you want to call it, has gone down to the last race of the season. Mathematically, it can still happen, but Steve Bolger could very much seal the deal at the next round. That's on the 16th of June, next Tuesday. Now, Hans, you mentioned this one, the TCAC all-wheel drive. The final round was last night of the regular season. The Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit next Wednesday plays host to, well, effectively it's the season finale, but it's a non-championship enduro.
Well, actually, I'm just having a look here. I should correct that right now. I'm just looking in Discord. The ATCC Group A calendar. This is the new ATCC mod. It's got all the classic ATCC cars that we all know and love, like the Volvo 240, the Mercedes 190e, the 190e, and the BMW M3, Nissan R31 or DR30 Skyline, and a couple of Commodores, a Mustang in there as well, and I'm sure there's another car, and a Sierra, I believe. And now that I've got all those cars off the top of my head, the next round will be starting at Calder Park, June 17th. So what you see on the screen is not correct. TSAC, the new ATCC Group A series, it's starting June 17th at Calder Park Raceway.
Well, it does say provisional up there as well, so I believe that's as it sits there right now. So we'll have to get that confirmed in the next week. So potentially that season finale there for TCAC AWD has been scrapped. I know there was some talk about it being done. I didn't see it being official. It's still listed on the TCAC all-wheel drive event page as being there, but we'll have to confirm that during the week. But still, the broadcast, whether it is the TCAC all-wheel drive or whether it's the new TCAC ATCC mod, will be on the Short Shift Motorsport podcast channel. And then next Friday, 19th of June, the Supercars continues, but it's the Super 2 format, a series that has grown in popularity over the course of the last several weeks. Quite a number of our colleagues across the ditch in New Zealand have picked up the steering wheels. So Scott Stancliffe, who's been in the Supercars format tonight, he was one of the first ones to come across it, but there's about 4 or 5 or even 6 men from New Zealand that have decided to come along and race with us, and we're getting grids over 20 cars. I think Hamilton, we ended up with about 22 or 23 cars last Friday, Hans. So next Friday, we go from the streets of Hamilton to the well-known circuit of Sydney Motorsport Park.
So I know Sydney Motorsport Park isn't a popular track for the likes of Steve Burko and Brian Walsh. They'll be looking to get out of it as much as they can. I mean, Burko is in contention for the championship, so he needs to rock up. But he has told me he doesn't like the circuit. I've done a bit of practice there. We'll see what the lap times are like on the night, but they could be in the 29s. That's my guess. So if you want to tune in next Friday on the Loose 89 channel, that's Lewis Wedding's channel. He's the series admin as well. And if you want to race in Super 2, have a chat to him. There might be a couple of free cars there.
Yeah, there's definitely a few free cars that have become available as drivers have not been able to make it, or drivers that say, hey, we can't race on that night. But definitely, if you want to come along to Super 2, we definitely encourage it. Lewis Wedding hosts the broadcast over on the Loose 89, or the Loose Sim Sport channel as we call it, and definitely becoming a real popular series. It's actually meant to be a bit of a breeding ground for some drivers to move up from the Super 2 into the Supercars. It does follow the same tracks as per the usual Supercars calendar. As we said, just every fortnight there's a race on the Friday night, and all about giving some experience to these guys. People like Steve Burko and Lime Mitch, who are 1 and 2 in the championship standings in Super 2, have made their way across to Supercars. Likewise, people like Scott Stancliffe, Wayne Spencer, Liam Spencer, they've decided to move up and do both series, which is great to see. There's a few really quick guys in Super 2 as well. People like Tim Redmond, aka Block Knight. I'm looking at you, Tim, and I think you'll be one of the ones I think probably would do really, really well in the Supercars series. So there's a few of you over there that we really do encourage you to come in, even as a wild card, come into the Supercars and have a run around. And then the final event there on the calendar is the very last race for the season for the Track Day Challenge hosted by Brenton Ross on the 22nd of June. So that is at the modern Adelaide Street circuit, not the Formula 1 1988 calendar circuit. It is the modern V8 Supercars circuit, and then that will be the season finale for the Track Day Challenge. Likewise, the day after that, on the 23rd of June, it will be the season finale for the TCR cars, sending them off with their final race of the season at Sandown. So a couple of series come to a close, and then there's a couple of other ones in the works as well. The big one being the Porsche Cup, which is almost a lockout, Hans.
Yeah, it's almost a lockout already. Similarly, the TSAC ATCC Championship is actually a lockout, so you may need to rock up on the night to see if you can get a car. And Lewis Wedding also highlights that there may be a few cars free for Super 2. So talk to Lewis on the night and he might have a car available for you if you want to race in Super 2. But Porsche Cup upcoming, That's been pretty popular so far, and I'd like to give a shout out to Daniel Cox because he's figured out how to paint a car in 3D, so that is very impressive. The car looks pretty good, and he did an example car as well, and even that looks pretty good. He probably put 5 minutes into it and just said, I've just done this as an example, but to get the most out of the templates, I personally don't like working on the template, and I'm sure if you looked at the template, you'll hate it. And I'm sure Lewis, who's in the chat right now, he'll probably feel the same way about it. But the Porsche Cup cars, they don't drive as bad as the template is, so they actually drive fairly well. And there is going to be a mystery track on the calendar, and it's up to a track vote. So stay tuned to see which track that will be. There's a bunch of choices in Discord, and eventually the vote will be out there.
Yeah, I'm not going to reveal what the 7 out of the 8 circuits are that are on the calendar already, because that's a closely guarded secret, but you are right. The number of tracks that are on the calendar is going to be 8, and the 8th one is decided by track vote. Now, currently there, I'm just counting up 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, there's 15 circuits on the calendar at the moment, and a couple have also had their votes taken away because they were either on the provisional calendar or they'd been run in previous times. So some of the suggestions coming in there from all over the world. Some of them are circuits we've run before in other series. Some of them are brand new circuits. So what it'll be whittled down to is all the circuits will go into a bucket. The admins will decide which ones are probably the more appropriate circuits to run. They'll put 3 or 4 of them up and then make everybody available to vote. And the winner will be added as the final circuit. So little something different that we normally do, that we do as opposed to just normally selecting the circuits ourselves here at AMS Oz, getting a little bit of driver involvement.
Well, the old days used to be we select the circuits and you get what you get and you don't get upset.
Pretty much.
Nice to see a bit of democratisation involved in terms of track voting. But just looking at the options there are some tight circuits, there are some fast and flowing circuits, there are open circuits, there are closed circuits, like very small and tight circuits, and there are circuits in little Australian backwaters, and there are circuits in the most exotic locations around the world. It is a very wide variety, an eclectic mix of circuits, but which one will take the win in the track vote, we're soon to see.
Well, with 26 drivers all to vote on it, it's going to be very, very interesting. Getting a couple of comments coming in from the live chat. So Nathan Higginson, we give him a shout out for some of the work that he's doing with some of his fantastic modding that he's been putting together. Some of those old school supercars and some of the liveries that he's been putting together look absolutely fantastic at the moment. So great to have you watching along there. Lewis reiterating our comments about Super 2, saying there's always a free car or two on the night, so if you want to come along and have a race, you're more than welcome to do so. And, well, good to see that Tim Redmond, aka Block Knight, is watching along, and he did hear my comment saying, yes, he just says hello there, so yes, we are paying attention here, Tim.
Yeah, Tim's actually been a great supporter of the streams. He was actually watching the TSAC stream last night, so yeah, fantastic to see that Tim's getting into it. And he's shown himself to be a very handed driver to boot.
Certainly is. Looks like the grid's been set. We're just waiting for the go-ahead, for the green light to get going again. And looks like we may have lost. I think Scott Stancliffe was just mentioning that maybe he may drop out if his lag gets worse again. So he's obviously a bit concerned about running into somebody should it become a bit of a problem. And we're just seeing on the other screen there that he has had another one of those little issues with the lag. What we might do is we might just pick up with the warm-up session. There's only 3 and a bit minutes to go. Brendan Ross has just got himself disqualified. I don't know how he's managed to do that, but he won't be disqualified from the race session. He's just disqualified from this little warm-up session. And there's Scott Stancliffe just trundling down the lane. And yeah, looks like he might be having a couple of those lag dramas again. Not very many drivers have elected to take to the track for this warm-up session. A few of them will probably just be collecting their thoughts and figuring out, given their performance in the first race, where they're going to start and how on earth they're going to make their way through this field.
Yeah, we're lucky we have a progressive grid format. We don't get any shenanigans with reverse grids. But it would be interesting to see. I love a good reverse grid race, as we've shown that the racing has improved so much with AMS Oz lately, thanks to racecraft sessions. I know you, yourself, Steve, and Lewis, and I believe a couple of others, they've been very instrumental in that. Just noticing that NZ Snipes another one of our Super 2 drivers. He's actually in the chat as well. So g'day to the blokes across the ditch. And they've been a great part of AMS Oz as of late.
Yeah, definitely. We should probably change the name to AMS Oz and AMS OZ or something. We should have figured out a way, or Anzac Oz or something. I'm not sure. We'll come up with some sort of a name. Just noticing Brian Walsh has gone the wrong way into the pit garage. I don't know what he's doing there, but there we go. He's reset himself back to the spot. As we just keep our eye on the pit lane here. Seeing who's trundling down the lane. There goes Lion Mitch in his number 13 Monster Energy Mustang.
I believe Brian Walsh, he actually learnt that technique from a certain racing driver who's actually took up a more lucrative profession.
Leave it. Yes, that is well documented for Walsh. I'm surprised that there's no Easter egg on his car somewhere that we haven't found yet of that particular nature. But that's a joke he's never going to live down.
No, not at all. I roast him daily about it.
If he ever gets himself into trouble, that's the only thing that we always sort of bring up now, isn't it? This is what this person would do, but no, we try not to let him get away with too much there. It looks like we're going to let this session run out, so there's a minute and a quarter left. So provisional starting grid for the next race is going to be Devenish off of pole with Luke Rosella, and then behind them Brenton, Foley and Kurt Stenberg, and then Colin Warwick out of 5th place. That's what the finishing order was when they got there. So 4 Holdens and a Volvo off the top 5. This is going to be the first time we're going to get to see what Luke Rosella can do and how good this Volvo is off the line, because we haven't really had a chance to pay too much attention to it, because usually they've been buried a bit further into the field. Now it's going to be up the pointy end. Let's have a listen to that Volvo as it launches off the line. We all know it's got that fantastic sound on the flat plane crank. And on that note, it'd be great to see a couple of Mercedes cars out there in the grid as well to really make the whole thing complete. I know Lewis has been doing a little bit of work trying to get some more realistic interiors into the Volvo and into the Mercedes, so we really do need to represent a little bit as well.
Let's not forget the Nissans as well.
Correct.
We actually have a dearth of Nissans this season. We had a couple last season, and majority Holden versus Ford competition, but now with a couple of Volvos in there, good to see some diversity in the field.
Nissans are a bit
different
of a
sounding engines.
Nissans are a bit of a popular choice in Super 2, actually. There's the 2 Hornets cars, there's the 2 Jack Daniels cars as well. There's about 4 or 5 Nissans at least in Super 2, so there's a good mix of the Nissans and the Fords and the Holdens in Super 2.
Yeah, go the old Datsuns.
Yep.
They go all right, and they've got some handy drivers in there as well with the Super 2 Nissans.
Now, I believe that we're just waiting on the server itself to get itself together here. I can see that there's a car in the lane, which is Rhodey's car, that's just spinning some wheels. So I don't think that is supposed to be happening. We're just waiting on the server to get its act together here. So what we might do is we might just step away for a few seconds. We'll go back to some normal pictures, and we'll just wait for them to get everything together. I'll imagine what we're waiting on is potentially somebody has dropped out of the server. Yes, and it looks like it might be for Dwayne Davies. So there we go. And here we go, yep. A few people just having a few dramas at the minute. Not the first time we've had this. We actually had this the other night in the ARW race for the Super Tourers at Alton Park. The game goes into a bit of a synchronising phase where it tries to get everybody's games in sync. I would imagine that's probably what's happening as well.
Yeah, what it does, it tends to pause the game and you literally can't do anything. You can look right and left in your car, but you're pretty much stuck. You can't shift gears, you can't accelerate, nothing happens.
Yeah, you can't do anything at all. And a few little bits and pieces going on in the live chat as well. So Brenton Foley confirming our suspicions that they were letting the clock run out to make sure everybody could get back in. And we're just waiting on Dwayne Davies to get back, which means we are going to have a full complement of 19 drivers, which is the same number of drivers what we started with. Sadly, Glenn Miles hasn't been able to make it back in time for race 2 after his dramas before the race 1 start, so he's probably just packed it in for the night. I think he's probably watching along in the live stream as well. Hans, what are you looking at here? Looks like Snipes is calling you out here saying, "Oh, stop it." What?
Oh, just a bit of serenading going on. I haven't serenaded him lately, but I think he's referring to a certain driver coach for a certain Brian Walsh.
Oh, there we go. Yes, this is coming up again. Here we go. All right, so Dwayne Davies.
It's driver coaching. That new lucrative profession, I guarantee you, is driver coaching, and she's making a lot off a certain Brian Walsh. I don't know. This is just something we just roast him about because he seems to be following the news very eagerly.
The middle part of this broadcast, when Brian watches it back, is he's just going to be sitting there asking himself, "Why are they roasting me over and over again?"
It's got nothing to do with his driving.
No.
In fact, I've never roasted him about his driving. Never ever. I'm a nice guy. I only roast him about things outside the race car.
All right. Looks like we might be ready to go here. Everybody's back in, and the grid is organising itself right now. So
that concludes the Brian Walsh roast dinner.
Yes.
And now we actually have some racing to go on. We've got another race to go on tonight, and Will Devenish will be starting from the pole.
Yeah, I was going to say, the roast is over, so main course is finished, and now we're on to dessert.
I think this race will be a little bit of a treat, won't it?
Oh, it will be a bit of a treat, I think, especially seeing we get to see what happens off the front row. How many cars left in the pit lane there to come to the track? So Wedding, Foley, our pole sitter Will Devenish, and looks like Rhodey there as well, yet to make it to the track. There goes Rhodey. And these guys might want to get a wriggle on, and 1 minute's about to elapse. They don't want to leave their run too late. There goes Foley. And we are just waiting on...
Maybe this is a power stance thing.
There goes Will. So there goes Lewis. And there goes our pole sitter. And he got there just in the nick of time too. So
and he's off and running.
He's off and running.
Line up the bags and away we go, Steve. You take us to the grid.
All right. So unlikely race winner Will Devenish starts from the pole for the second time tonight. Having taken pole for race 1 and then dropped back during the race, takes an unlikely victory. We'll start on the pole again. Luke Rosella did pretty well to move up the field, up to P2. Let's see what he's got. Has he got anything to challenge Will Devenish over the course of the next 37 laps? Brenton Foley just managed to hold off Kurt Stenberg for third place in that first race, but he's going to have him alongside for a start on row number 2. Colin Warwick takes the Brad Jones Racing 2018 liveried car up to position 5 on the road, pretty much about where he started, so he did pretty well to maintain the status quo through that race. Steve Burko marched forward from 10th to 6th after the end of race 1, so good result for another one of the Volvo drivers at one of the circuits that he's pretty favoured at. Lewis Wedding and Pete Savage, it's an all-loose sim sport 4th row of the grid. Scott Stancliffe has his best starting position, P9. Wayne Spencer ahead of his son for the very, very first time in Supercars, starts out at P10. Cam Rutledge, who we thought may have been involved in that contact with Kurt Stenberg, which ultimately turned out to be no contact at all, in P11. There's Liam Spencer, position number 12, 2 spots behind his father. Brendan Ross, who was involved in that tangle with Termo in the opening race, out of 13. Rhodey, P14. And then we've got Brian Walsh for Scuderia Alitalia. Termo, the last of the CRE Motorsport cars, out of 16. And then you've got the first of the do not finishes from race 1, Phil Boak, Lai Mitch, and Dwayne Davies. Just waiting on them all to line up at the back. Looks like they're a little bit tardy. A few drivers also just getting themselves, again, angling the cars at the Ross. But look, as Brendan Ross is angling toward the outside, a couple toward the inside. Race 2 of the Calder Twin Sprint is about to get underway. Here we go. Look at the reaction time from Rosella. Great reaction time. Foley's had a shocking start. Got it all sorts of sideways. Surrenders position immediately.
Look at Colin Warwick. Colin Warwick up the inside. He might be going up to second by the first corner.
Stenberg's on the outside though, so Warwick's just going to have to be a bit careful here, but great reaction time from the Volvo driver in Rosella. He's going to have to hang Stenberg out to dry here. He's got to be really careful. He just leaves him enough space on the run down to the first chicane. Does Stenberg back out? Yes, he does. Just very, very late on the back out there. Colin Warwick up to 3rd. Devenish from the pole down to 4th. Foley to 5th, and Burko's threatening the back of Foley in 6th place.
Foley went absolutely backwards there. He made a lot of burnouts, but didn't get a great start. I think that's a car off in the background.
Yeah, I did see a car off in the background.
Brendan Ross. So Brendan Ross, he went off at the flip-flop. I'll just have a check. That,
through goes Stenberg and through goes Warwick. So there's a little bit of a mistake there for Luke Rosella through the last couple of corners, and the TTR Commodore goes to the top of the pile after the opening lap of this second race. What happened to Luke Rosella? As you were watching back on that screen there, here it is again. Just got completely mugged coming out of the chicane and over the fast one, and the top two have already cleared out.
So in that replay, we just saw Brenton Ross going off. He actually went off at the first chicane and stayed on the grass to make sure he didn't come on in an unsafe rejoin.
So he did pretty well there, Brenton Ross. Of course, after that first instant there. Now, Rosella's also surrendered position here to Devenish and to Foley in the last 30 seconds or so. So he's gone backwards from the start. So had a very, very good reaction time off the start, led into turn one, but hasn't been able to hold it. And now it's the likes of Foley and Devenish. They're going to have to start to really challenge. And Devenish is already challenging the back of Colin Warwick as they come around to complete lap 2. Who else is some big movers on this lap here? Brian Walsh has gone to the tail end of the field. Dwayne Davies up from the rear of the grid from 19th to 13th after 2 laps. So good start for D2. Up ahead of Brenton Ross, tucked in there behind Liam Spencer. Let's have a look at the run as they all come down the front straightaway. Here's the line Mitch sizing up an opportunity on Scott Stancliffe, who's dropped now 2 positions since the drop of the green flag. There's D2 just tucked in there behind Liam Spencer, who's just maintained where he started. Wayne Spencer, his father, up 1 spot already.
Just an update on Luke Rosella. Another lag issue going into turn 1. That dropped him from 3rd place down into 5th.
Still having.
Colin Warwick's off the road, and so too Devenish.
Oh wow! So there's been a bit of coming together between those two. Possibly there has, and looks like it was in the last couple of corners as well. Let's pick it up. Let's see what happened here. So they were running nose to tail. They came out of the first chicane. They'll come. There goes Stenberg. There's Warwick. Fastest lap of the race for Stenberg that time around. No surprise. So Warwick was off the road a little bit. Had 2 wheels in the grass, and Will sent it. Will sent it, and there was a little bit of side-to-side contact.
He was not going to make that corner, Will.
No, definitely not. So he let him go there, and actually has made Will pretty vulnerable to the Foley and Rosella combination behind. He's managed to hang on for the moment. But that's a free kick to Kurt Stenberg. Got a handy little buffer at the moment, 1.5 seconds, or nearly thereabouts as they go. Foley under attack here. Rosella's not giving up easily. Pete Savage is pretty close here now as well, given he's just dispatched Steve Burko in the last lap and a half.
It's pretty impressive, the start that Colin Warwick got. I'm still reeling off that, because that is actually an impressive start, and he just got that off the line very well. Luke Rosella a bit taily coming out of the final corner. He's pushing hard to try and attack Brenton Foley. The new fastest lap of the race, 56.513 for Will Devenish. So Devenish, he's really on the back foot in this race.
Pair of loose Sim Sport Falcons trying to hunt down a pair of Volvo S60s at the moment. Rosella's locked up, gone deep at turn 1. That's going to let Pete Savage through very, very easily. Burko's going to have a buy into this as well. And they're going to go side by side up to the next chicane on the wrong side for the first bit, but Rosella manages to hold. Burko's going to try the over and under, but just couldn't get the power on at the right time. And now this is a single file chicane through here. You do not want to go side by side through here. A couple of them got a little bit out of sorts here. Rosella might just hold for the moment. Although Burko sends it, gets up to the B pillar, commands a bit of space, and Rosella's going to leave it for him. They'll run side by side through the part of the chicane, and Wedding buys into this as well. Very opportunistic.
He really mugged Rosella for position there, and Rosella will have to yield. So it's going wrong for him right now. He's down 6 positions from the start of the race.
Yeah, shocking opening 5 laps for Luke Rosella. Wedding moves up to P7. Burko up to where he started, P6. In the draft, though, Rosella going to stay with Lewis Wedding as he tries to size up a move on Burko into turn 1.
Oh, they could be going 3 wide, but Rosella thinks better of it. Just goes back to the racing line.
A little bit deep for Burko on the opening part of turn 1, but sort of taking that Stenberg line that we saw him take a couple of times in the opening race as well. Just going a bit deep and taking that late
down
apex.
To 4th. So when did this happen?
I reckon that might be recent, actually. Let's see if we can pick up on the replay what happened there. Yeah, here we go. So he was in behind Colin Warwick. Decided to make a move and send it here. Oh, he's done the same thing that he did to Kurt Stenberg on race 1.
I don't think Warwick's going to be happy with that at all. So Will Devenish, it's all gone backwards for him from pole off the line.
Yeah.
And 6 laps in, he's down in 4th. So far from ideal start for Devenish, but Foley, he's beginning the attack on Warwick. Meanwhile, Stenberg, he's just blazing away into the distance.
Here goes Foley now. You've got to be careful here because, as the guys said, this is one of the very, very hard braking zones to get right. The margin for error is very, very fine. Devenish has made another mistake there as well. Now, Rosella's been mugged even more. He's doing his best to stay with Lewis Wedding here, but I think he's lost it a little bit just on that opening lap. On that last lap, I just saw him in the back of shot. Looked like he had a little bit of a moment, but he's actually managed to catch up to the back of Wedding as well. Warwick on the defensive into turn 6. This is Letty Woods. Oh, he's gone
Warwick's
off!
around. He's gassed it up, and he's just ended up in the grass there.
Oh, that's a very, very rookie mistake. Oh, and he came on at a real awkward moment as well for the chasing pack.
No.
Oh, that's a terrible rejoin. That's terrible.
The cooler heads would have prevailed there. That's just, I mean, Colin Warwick's been racing enough to know. But I think just the whole stress of going off, I think he was just in a rush to get back onto the track. So it's easily done, but anyone being experienced in sim racing would know not to join so abruptly like that.
Yeah, here it is.
Especially, here he goes, he joins just before the, see, look at that. So that could have been very dangerous, but luckily there was good situational awareness from the likes of Burko and Wedding.
Yeah, absolutely right. That's the hardest part of that. They knew something was going to go wrong. What needed to happen in that situation is we come up to this part of the circuit again, and I'll just point it out as Warwick is now ceded position to Rosella and Wedding. Where he went off here on the right-hand side of the circuit, he needed to come on between there and on the back side of that chicane. Lion Mitch has had a big moment as well. Big tank slapper for Lion Mitch, and he's decided to take the bait and go in for a stop. So it didn't work out all that bad in the end for him, but this is a really early stop.
Do you see the attitude of the car? Just smacked the rear against the wall first.
And Warwick's in as well.
Smacked the rear against the wall first, and then the front came in.
Yep, here it is.
Just have a look at that. Just look at the car just bounce back and forth.
Yeah, the attitude of the car was absolutely insane. I was just saying that Warwick needed to rejoin on the right-hand side of the curve, not the one he did. Just gassed it up. Lion Mitch just tried to pedal it. Yeah, slapped the wall. Didn't look like it was a very hard hit, though, so that's the important bit. There's going to be no real damage to worry about.
Back in the old days, that would have been enough to break the bolt in the bell crank of the Watts Link. That was in the old Project Blueprint spec and previous cars. Having a look at Brian Walsh now, he's down in 16th. Has he taken service?
No,
he's just down in 16th. Meanwhile, DNF for Scott Stancliffe. So when did he DNF? He must have DNF'd on
lap 6.
So
now, I would imagine that's also a recurrence of some of the lag issues he's been having. As I said before, I did see in the chat that he was a bit concerned about running into somebody if the lag got too bad. Similar thing to what Rosella's got. I think Stancliffe's is more of an internet type of thing.
Speaking of Rosella, he's actually looking down the inside of Burko, but Burko goes deep. He misses the apex, and he actually that line is working for him quite well. So Rosella backed out of that one, but he's looking to set up a move. Rosella, he's just a tiny bit quicker than Burko at the moment, fellow Volvo driver.
This is one of Burko's favourite tracks, I think, as well, that he did really well here in Super 2 round, so he fancies himself rather pretty handsomely to do well. Being inside the top 10 in opening race was pretty handy, and he's fighting on the inside of the top 5 now. He's really going to have his hands full with this pair behind him, Rosella and Wedding, if this continues on for the better part of the next 27 laps, though.
There's someone who's been fairly quiet, but up into the top 5 is Pete Savage. He's actually moved 4 spots up from his starting position of 8th.
PB that time around as well for Pete Savage.
57.07. So he's not got the outright pace at the moment, but he's doing a pretty solid job.
This will go nicely with his haul of points and his podium position from Barbagallo as well. He was inside the top 10.
A bit of a touch between Lewis Wedding and Luke Rosella. And they both got a bit sideways there, but luckily no spins. And that was on the run to turn 1, I take it as well. That was just coming out of turn 1, so we'll watch them go through turn 1. Fairly uneventful here. Burko tries to cover a little bit, then moves back onto the racing line.
Yeah, nothing wrong
with
with
that. No issue there. Now, Rosella runs wide.
Oh, Wedding was on the curb too.
Yeah, there you go. So he tried to avoid, and he was on the slide for a very long time.
Yeah, I think Wedding might have got hung up on the curb as he tried to take the approach there. Now, Rosella's got a little bit of a better exit here out of the final corner, but just not the traction zone to get a run on Burko, but he's close enough to maybe just be a metre or two later on the brakes if he can pull it up for turn 1. Burko will be awake to this, though. In actual fact, Rosella brakes a smidgen earlier. And Burko just says, well, I'm just going to leave you some space here for this time. Although Wedding's going to try and stick... Oh, geez, that was a close run thing as well. Wedding was very close to sticking his nose down Rosella's right-hand side and thought better of it in the end.
You can throw a blanket over these three. They're that close together. But Lewis Wedding, very, very dangerous moments because he was ranging up on the back. He was just like, yep, I'll take this position. Very opportunistic, but nearly went 3 wide through the exit of turn 1.
Yeah, he got a run on them and just couldn't do anything with it. That's that problem. You come off a turn 1. If you can get a good launch into a little sort of zone like that, you've got to make your move
here we
stick.
go. Here we go. A move now for Rosella or Wedding. Who's going to make the move?
Rosella had a little slide mid-corner there as well, so he's managed to hang on to it. I thought it was going to make him vulnerable for a minute if it went on for too long. Draft. And who does Wedding decide to go with? I think he's going to try and go with Rosella if he's far enough alongside, and he is. But Burko tries to close it down. Rosella's gone deep, and that's enough to let Wedding through on the inside. Now it's a yellow flag here, so they've got to be careful. Did the move get done before the yellow flag came out? I think that might be... That wasn't Pete Savage, was it, having a moment? No. There's another car ahead of them on the track at the moment. Who does that car happen to be?
Wedding's off. Wedding's off. He just floated straight off the road, and he's out. He's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
he's mowing the grass. He needs to get back on.
He's got to get back on before that sector marker. I think he's missed it. I think he's missed the sector marker. This is going. If he has, this is a problem for no, he's got it.
Oh,
that was very lucky.
That was near disaster for Wedding. More disastrous than it already was. Let's have a look.
Let's have a look at it again. On board. What happened here?
Oh, look at that.
Steering
First
lock.
part of the chicane, it just escaped him.
Yep.
You saw the wheel just come out of his hands there.
Yeah, the wheel work was a problem there. One of the things you need to do when you take that chicane on at full breakneck speed is you need to keep the wheels straight.
Now, Kurt Stenberg is in 3rd position. What's happened here? And he's actually coming under attack from Pete Savage.
Has he had a moment somewhere? So that puts Devenish into the lead of this race.
So Kurt Stenberg's last lap was 1:04.27.
So we've missed that on the broadcast while we were looking at what was going on with Wedding and Rosella and Burko.
Oh,
he's had a spin.
That must have been the yellow flag because he's had a spin coming out of the second chicane. Sorry, the first chicane.
Yep, so that will be the yellow flag that we saw flash up on the screen. I was wondering what the car was that was ahead, and I thought it was Pete Savage because it looked black, but it wasn't. It was actually Stenberg coming back to Pete Savage because of the spin.
So
Wowee, so the points leader is not having the best of nights at the moment.
Very uncharacteristic to see these mistakes from Stenberg. He's been the class of the field to this point of the season, and to see a couple of mistakes in 2 corresponding races at Calder Park, it's very unfortunate to see, but if he finishes on the podium, we'll have to ask him what was going on.
Absolutely.
Very uncharacteristic.
Getting a bit more word on the Scott Stancliffe non-finisher, and that thanks to NZ Snipes. He's had a PC crash, so not the lag issue that we thought, but a little PC crash. Meanwhile, Rosella's managed to find a way through on Burko, and Wedding has managed to catch back up to the pair of them as well, having had that excursion across the grass. And can Rosella start to fight his way away from these guys? He's had a pretty good traction out of that corner there, so he got a bit of a headway. You can see the other cars ahead of him down the main straight, so he'll have that incentive to keep going. How's Colin Warwick and Lime Mitch doing? Those guys are in behind Wayne Spencer and Liam Spencer here on track. I think, no, they're just ahead and behind, so they pretty much come out together. But they're going...
I laughed a little bit.
Oh, no!
Wayne Spencer, he went for the block on... defend the position from his son.
Oh, that's a bit of a weird rejoin as well, right in front of Brendan Ross.
So there could have been 2 disasters there.
Yeah,
he could have fired
into
Colin Warwick, and he could have ruined Rossi's race.
Yeah, and Rossi's not happy, and I can probably understand why as well if we go on board and we have a bit of a look what happened down into turn 1 here. So this is Rossi's standpoint of view of what happened. So there's Lime Mitch ahead, and then ahead of him, Liam Spencer and Wayne Spencer. There goes Wayne Spencer. And watch the chop.
Have a look at this.
Yeah, Rossi had to take avoiding action.
And quick flash of the lights there to let him know that he's not happy. But yeah, very, very odd there. As we see that Lewis Wedding, meanwhile, has gotten past actually it's a satellite team car of Steve Burko, because it is got some Loose Sim Sport branding on it.
Yep, I know the reason for that is because Lewis Wedding designed the liveries for that car, I believe.
So we'll say satellite car, but Loose Sim Sport did the liveries.
Yes. Oh,
Oh,
Burko's at the
Burko,
moment.
speaking of Burko, he's actually off the road.
Oh, we pump up his tyres, and there he goes.
Pump up his tyres. He's actually second in the Super 2 points, I believe.
Yeah, Lime Mitch and Burko are at the top two in the standings of the points there. Burko didn't have the best of Hamilton rounds, with some honours going to, I think, from memory, Block Knight got a win from memory.
Yeah,
did he?
Tim Redmond got a win in the second race, and the first race was Lime Mitch.
And Lime Mitch won the first race. Well, here goes.
And a certain second place was yours truly.
Yes, it was. And I got punted twice.
And you weren't happy about
And I
that.
wasn't
Good
happy
thing I'm
about
your
it.
teammate.
Yes,
Good
I
thing
know.
I'm your teammate. I'm here for you. I'm
Us
here for you, Steve.
Us commentators got to stick together.
That's it.
Well, Rosella's in, and Stenberg's decided to come in early this time. So these guys are pretty much splitting the strategy almost down the middle. So where do they feed back into the traffic is very, very important. We'll keep an eye on where Colin Warwick and Lime Mitch are as to where they feed back in. So Rutledge now goes through into P10. Rosella on the move. Stenberg is also on the move, so they're about to drop back into the race. So we're looking for Colin Warwick. Roadie's coming into the lane here. Brian Walsh getting blue flags for Pete Savage. He seizes the opportunity there. Now Warwick is just ahead of these guys here now, and they've actually come out quite a distance ahead here. Oh, I think Burko might be a little bit aggrieved here with Warwick maybe blocking on the line just to... Yeah, and there we go, there's a flash of the light, so he's not happy with that one at all. So they've actually come out ahead, well and truly ahead of Warwick and Lime Mitch.
Bit of lap traffic between Stenberg and Rosella there.
Yeah.
Brian Walsh is not lap traffic, but who else is lap traffic?
That's Lewis Weddings.
No,
managed to go
they're actually
past
a lap
them there.
up. So they're a lap...
yeah, they're a lap up.
Yeah.
So Walsh is a lap down, and the other cars around them are currently a lap up. Stenberg being the first of the cars a lap down. Brian Walsh is a lap down, but has not stopped. The car ahead of Stenberg is Pete Savage, who's a lap ahead. And in he comes. So that clears a problem for Stenberg. He doesn't have to worry about coming in or trying to have to negotiate the other car. Now
Brendan Ross, meanwhile, in the pits as well. He's just about to go up on the jacks.
There he goes, and there he is on the left of screen there as Stenberg flashes past. Now, where's Will Devenish in all of this? So he's out in front and sort of just blazing away at the moment. Now, if your memory serves... Oh, now, I've heard a crash, so someone's come together somewhere on the circuit.
I believe that could have been Foley potentially crashing into the back of his
Could be Rhodey.
junior teammate. That's Rhodey. So we'll have a look at the replay.
Let's see if we can pick that up and see if anything happened there. Or it might have been someone just off the road hitting the wall. It did happen about the same time.
So I did see Rhodey put the lights on. I mean the brake lights on.
Oh,
Here we go. He thinks he's just going to give way. And there would have been a bit of a crash there.
Yep,
That'll do
there it is.
So hopefully no steering damage for Foley. He's probably not going to be happy about that.
No, he certainly won't be happy. And
But, that's one of those things. When you don't know what the other driver's going to do, you just dart one way and they happen to dart the other way.
Part of the problem in that situation, though, too, Hans, is about drivers themselves not knowing what to do. And we always tell drivers, try and be predictable. You know, the safest thing you can do is stay on the racing line and let the drivers go around you. And that's usually what happens in endurance racing. And the other part of that equation is don't make it unnecessarily difficult for the person who's overtaking you or putting you a lap down to do it. In that situation, it made it difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And that point, you shouldn't brake when the car is behind you, just in case they do dart one way or the other and it turns out to be the wrong way. But also, a bit of communication between drivers never goes astray either.
And they're in the same Discord too, which is the strange part. Foley should have been on the horn saying, I'm coming up to lap you, get out of the way. And maybe something got lost in that translation. I don't know what it was.
Yeah. Let's not delve into what people are thinking in their subjective mind state. We just know what's objectively happening in the race here. Will Devenish is out front of Brenton Foley by 5 seconds.
He is. Wedding's moved up to third. Again, yet to stop. Wayne Spencer's the same. He's yet to stop and has moved up to fourth. Termo, Cam Rutledge, D2. They are all the cars that are left on the lead lap. Brian Walsh coming out of the pits there as well. And it looks like Liam Spencer's come out too, a bit further behind his father. Two Top Gear cars running together. You're just looking over my shoulder at some of the comments going on there in the live stream. And
Literally looking over your shoulder.
Yeah, literally. Well, you're standing up and looking over both my shoulders because the comments are coming through on the laptop, which is on my right-hand side, and you're on my left.
And me being blind, I obviously can't see. I need to squint and move closer to the screen.
Yeah, we need to put up a slightly different setup here in the commentary
here we
box.
go. We've got the top two guys there in the pits.
All right,
Devenish in.
Yep.
Dwayne Davies in. And also Brenton Foley.
So that puts Wedding into the effective race lead with, again, yet to stop. Seeing some pretty respectable lap times there. So 56.7 compared to his best of a 56.5. And now Stenberg ahead is, well, he's in 6th place. He's not a lap down to Wedding just yet. So he's the first or the last of the cars that is technically still on the lead lap. And he really needs to be making hay while these guys are still in for their stops. Now, Turmo's just moved up to 2nd place, but he is still on the road and yet to stop. So that's why Devenish and Foley are yet to emerge. There goes D2, there goes Devenish, and I imagine Foley's about to go now too. And there he goes. Over into the first corner, and he does. Apologies if we just had a little bit of a drop in the live stream there. It's got a message up on my screen saying OBS reconnection is successful. So hoping that there was nothing untoward going on there. This is a mirror image of what Will Devenish did to Kurt Stenberg in the first race here, Hans, with Stenberg with the much warmer tyres and the warmer brakes, having stopped a couple of laps earlier, now all over Foley's rear end.
Now will Stenberg go for the big send here? Have a look into the second hairpin.
Oh, pulled it up.
Sorry, second hairpin. I don't know what I'm talking about. The third chicane. Just before the second hairpin. Here we go.
This is class as a hairpin now, isn't it? But given how slow it is. Good run. Good run by Stenberg out of the final corner. Foley's really going to have to think hard about what he does here. If I were Foley, I would have gone across the road by now and made Stenberg go the long way, but I think Foley may be thinking the complete opposite and thinking maybe it might be better to let Stenberg go and try and stay with him here.
Yeah, a bit of hip and shoulder never goes astray, does it? Oh, Stenberg goes deep. Bit of
that's that
block pass.
Yeah, that's that different line that he's been taking.
It's like a double apex, don't you think?
It's almost like taking the first part of that corner as a different apex and moving it a bit further into the corner, because he's completely sort of missing that opening part of the corner, but then trying to cut it back for the second part of the corner, as you like to say, Ving the corner.
I was just going to say the same thing. I haven't said it
and
for a while.
And I beat you to it.
I haven't said it for a while, but he's Ving the corner, and by doing that, he's able to maximise the amount of time that he spends accelerating. But going into a short shoot corner with a slow chicane, does it really give that much of a gain? I don't think so.
No, it doesn't. Lewis Wedding's just come in from the lead of this race as well, so that will then cleanse this field.
Does he lock it up in a pit lane again? No, not quite this time.
No, not quite. Listen, chasing going across the road behind, and that's Luke Rosella being chased across the road by Pete Savage.
He's got the elbows up.
Yep. Now he's made his one defensive move, so he's got to allow the space on the left-hand side here if Savage wants to try and hang it round.
Be a good boy.
Yep.
There we go.
Very good boy. Both
of them
very good. Savage is going to try the over and under here. Yellow flag, so we can't make that move happen now because we've got a yellow flag down here at this part of the circuit, and it's Colin Warwick. And Colin Warwick looks like he's out of this race, so let's go and pick up what happened to Colin Warwick. He was off the road there. Is it just another driving mistake, or has he had some sort of a drama? Coming down to the chicane and just gassed it up. Just gassed it up and spun it out, and looks like that engine is stalled. So that's the end of Colin Warwick's night.
Shame to see, because he is quite a handy steerer, and unfortunately we have seen a couple of mistakes from him tonight.
He's been up the pointy end of the field. He's running in the top 5 at one stage as well, so that was promising. We thought, oh, well, we might be on for a good win, a good result here. Now, where's Wedding fed back out into this? There he is. He's fed back out behind his teammate Pete Savage. So Savage has been able to make that earlier stop work for him, and has been able to stay with the number 5 of Luke Rosella. Wedding going to be able to catch back up. We're going to see this 2-car battle become a 3-car little train again.
How about Brenton Foley? He's still sticking onto the back of Stenberg. Very close to the rear bar of the ZB there.
He's done very well to hang on after letting him past as well.
Oh, Stenberg, big moment. Big moment coming out there. That would have been on the rev limiter for sure. Rev limiter working overtime.
We did see on the track walk a little bit earlier from Phil Boak that it's not uncommon for them to use the rev limiter going into the final corner as well, rather than just shift up to third gear and shift back to second. Better to bounce it on the rev limiter and just use that engine braking to arrest the car's speed. Oh, he's had a wiggle too, Stenberg, but he's on the wrong side as Foley was trying to battle, but somehow he manages to keep it on the track.
They're both battling. They were both battling to get into that
Oh,
corner.
and there's a little nudge there, I think, as well, as Stenberg gave Foley, as Foley moved over to assume the better racing line, thinking he was clear as well. But good, fair fight between these two at the moment. And then there's the pair of fourth and fifth behind them, just going through the chicane now with D2 Dwayne Davies in between them. He's the first car one lap down, incidentally. Who else is having a good battle? Steve Burko and Brendan Ross are resuming some hostilities as well. Let's go back and pick them up.
Oh, Brendan Ross, he's off the road.
Yeah, just as I said that,
Literally,
Rossi
as we picked that up, he's off the road. So we'll have a look at the replay. What happened there?
Yeah, so let's pick that up on the replay. Coming into turn one. So they were just starting to get close. This was the interesting bit of it. And it happened, looks like, between the chicanes. Rossi took a bit of curb. Oh, got left. It was on the grass for too long. He took too much grass on the exit of the first chicane, and then he just straight lined the second one.
He was very lucky that there was no one around him there, because that could have gone awry very quickly.
Yeah, that could have become a disaster very, very quickly if that didn't, if had any other cars around him. But he's
only minor damage on board for the PBF Bundaberg Commodore.
Maybe a very slight bit of panel damage. I don't think it's going to upset the steering. The car looks pretty straight. Looks like it's pointing in the right direction, although he's getting very close again. Kicked up a bit more grass on the outside of that corner as well, so everyone pushing the limits on this circuit. Fastest lap for Devenish, 0.218 to go with a 56. And the Stenberg-Foley battle continues. We'll come back to that Ross and Burko battle if it starts to get close again. Rosella and Savage are just getting past Dwayne
Foley's
Davies.
made a mistake. He's gone deep, and he's just got that little sand apron on the outside of turn one. So that ruins his run on Stenberg, but he was keeping
right
up
with
there. He was keeping up there with the punches.
Yeah, he was right with him when we were last watching it. Not separated by very much. It was just a fraction out of the toe. It was getting a little bit of draft assistance, but not the same as if you're following right under the rear wing. And what do you do here? Oh, again, just upset
Very
that braking
deep,
zone.
and a bit of a lock brake as well at the last part of the corner.
That's such a tight margin that Will Devenish was talking about with where the braking zone actually begins. Having driven this circuit in Super 2, if you keep an eye on the circuit, you'll see where the rubber build-up starts to happen. So if we go on board with the roof cam, you'll see it just start to hone into view just at the point of the circuit here. And that's the braking point that you need to be. You can maybe go 1 or 2 metres beyond that if you're lucky, but if you go any further than that, you're going sailing off into turn one. You're not going to make a corner.
Yeah, you've got your 4 stages of the corner. If you want to dissect the corner, you've got the approach, entry, apex, and exit. And right between that approach and entry phase, that's where it all went wrong for him. The brakes started to lock. He's just asking too much of the car, braking a bit too late. And unfortunately, it resulted in a mistake and going off the end of the road for Foley.
What we don't sort of factor in a lot into the braking, especially for turn one here, Hans, is the amount of speed that you're carrying going into turn one. And it all starts from the very beginning of the straight. The minute you get your exit off of that last corner dictates what your ultimate pace is going to be when you get to this braking marker right here. It could be 270 k's an hour, could be 275 k's an hour, could be 266 k's an hour. You just don't know what it's going to be. It's all dependent on that exit at the top end of the circuit. So if you get a good exit, you've got good straightaway speed, means you're going to have to be on the braking marker all the time. If you get a slightly poorer exit, you can go slightly beyond where the braking marker is and still pull the car up. But you know, you might end up pulling the car up nicely, you might end up pulling the car up not at all, or you might end up pulling the car short. You've got to be very, very consistent with your exit off of this final corner to have a consistent braking marker and a consistent braking performance at the bottom end of the circuit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That braking marker actually changes from lap to lap depending on your terminal velocity at the end of the straight. But also, speaking about the 4 stages of the corner, now the approach phase, when does that start? when does that start? When the approach phase starts? That's actually when you lift off the throttle. New fastest lap of the race, Lewis Wedding, 56.198. That may have been a bit of a help from draft there. No, he's actually in clear air, so that's really impressive. Great pace from Lewis Wedding. Ooh, locks a brake there, asking a bit too much under brakes. He gets the car turned in for the second apex, being the corner, we like to say, or as I like to say, and now I've rubbed it off on you. But the approach phase of the corner actually starts when you lift off the throttle. Now, a lot of people think that the corner actually starts when you're braking, but when you lift off the throttle is where it really starts. And this part of the circuit, the turn 1 of the circuit, actually does amplify that a lot, because a lot of people are left foot brakers, but when you lift off the throttle and jam on the brake, that's really when that phase starts. And you have to get that first stage right, the approach phase just right, in order to make the approach, the entry correct, and then the apex and the exit. And this circuit amplifies that at turn 1.
Yeah, it sure does. And the important part of when you're saying lifting off the throttle, it's not just the lifting off the throttle, it's that transition from the amount of time in between lifting off the throttle and the transition to the brake. It's got to be almost seamless. Unless you're lifting and coasting to save fuel, or you're lifting and coasting to stay and maintain your braking buffer or your braking distance to a car in front of you, that transition has got to be immediate.
Yeah, that's right. You just got to be on 100% brake at the very start, where you've got the downforce and the speed on the car, and just bleeding off the brakes as the car slows down. But in real life, obviously, this all goes out the window, because right foot braking is the preferred method, and it was the preferred method for when cars were tackling Calder Park, but it was the same issue. The way you get off the throttle and slam on the brakes and bleed the brake off as you approach the apex and trail brake into the corner, that was the corner that really amplified those sorts of skills.
Yeah, it sure did. Back in the days where, of course, the famous thing that happened here in the day was Craig Lowndes' very, very scary and frightening rollover. And that's back in the days where you were talking about where right foot braking was the thing. They still had the clutch pedal and
H-pattern gearboxes.
The H-pattern gearboxes and everything.
It was a row your own gearbox. You used to row yourself through the gears. But funnily enough, Craig Lowndes, he was not the only car to go over on its head at the bank we just saw on the right there of the approach shot.
Correct.
But there was actually a Formula Ford that went over there, and I believe I can't remember who the driver was, but I believe he ended up in hospital. Craig Lowndes, meanwhile, he actually did end up in hospital himself. He actually tore a ligament in his knee and had to get a knee reconstruction.
Yeah, that's the very high-profile incident of the day. Plenty of curb hopping going on back there. Very controlled curb hopping. Now, back to the battle at the front. There's been some interesting developments going on up here. Have a look at this. The battle for second, third and fourth is well and truly on. Stenberg has made some mistakes. Foley has managed to stay with him. Then Luke Rosella has managed to get onto the back of the pair of them. So, again, this is not over in the late stages of this race. 3 laps to go.
So last lap by, best lap was for Luke Rosella, 56.47 versus a 57.08 for Foley and a 56.98 for Stenberg. So Rosella, he's just been chipping away or even shaving away just ever so slightly. He's just been
and have a look who's just ahead of Stenberg. Remember what happened last time? Cam Rutledge is the man just ahead of Kurt Stenberg.
Intimidation. Maximum intimidation.
This is going to be interesting all over again. Will Devenish has got this race win pretty much in his pocket. He could cruise home from here with a 12-second advantage. The loose SimSport cars behind this trio are also fighting over
Foley's making a move.
Oh, and
he's making a move. Stenberg sideways.
Full opposite lock on the TTR Commodore going into turn 1. In the braking zone as well, and he's going to surrender second to Foley. Rosella's going to take third. What
Stenberg from second to fourth. It's all gone wrong for him, but Rosella, he's got another lap to make it happen, a lap and a half. Can he get to second again?
He potentially could do it. Another podium finish would be great feather in his cap for him. Meanwhile, we have a look back at the loose SimSport cars. Lewis Wedding has just managed to go past Pete Savage in the last 20 seconds or so as well. They came over the rise. It was the other way around. I was saying these two cars were getting pretty close together.
Stenberg in the pits.
Instead, he's coming to the pits. He's not short on fuel, is he?
You're joking. Is he fuel saving?
Well, I'm going to let you keep an eye on that one, because I want to keep an eye on what's happening with Rosella here. He's getting a bit of a tow from Cam Rutledge, and Foley's actually managed to go past in the last couple of corners as well. So Foley was getting the tow. Rosella's just lost a little bit of touch with him here. The last little bit.
Sorry, Steve. He may have mucked up his fuel calculations.
So Stenberg's in 7th place at the minute. It's about to become 8th. He's still trundling down the lane. Oh, no. He's gone up on the jacks, but it can't be tyre related. It's got to be fuel. It's got to be fuel. That is a disaster for the points leader coming into tonight. He's surely going to either surrender that lead or it's going to be severely minimised after tonight's proceedings. But another win for Will Devenish. This one on pure merit and pure pace. Second place is about to go to the line. Is Rosella going to get a run on Foley on the run to the line? It comes up very quickly. And the answer to that's going to be no. Foley's going to hang on for second place just by a tenth and a bit. And Pete Savage got back past Lewis Wedding after all of that as well.
Now have a look at the margin between second and third. That is 77 thousandths of a second.
I called it
that
as
is
a tenth.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I called it as a tenth and a bit, but it was actually a lot less than that. So Wedding finishes 5th. Burko, another 6th place finish. Great result for Top Gear Racing yet again. The Volvo's getting home in the top 6. Brennan Ross with 7th. Lymitch the 8th. Wayne Spencer goes one better for 9th. And Liam Spencer makes it inside the top 10. Kurt Stenberg gets a drive-through penalty. Now, there's all sorts of shenanigans going on at the moment.
There's cars flying everywhere.
Now, can you have a look? We'll have to have a look into this, Hans, to see what's going on here. But Stenberg's got a drive-through penalty. I'm wondering if that came as a pit lane speeding thing after he crossed the line, because the start-finish line is about 3/4 of the way down the pit straight when you're in the pits. And I'm wondering if Stenberg's had some sort of, fuel miscalculation or something there, but he's finished outside the top 10.
Now, he would have crossed the finish line. He would have crossed the finish line just as Will Devenish crossed over the finish line, because it's showing him, it says best lap 56.32, so that means he's actually crossed the line there. So he's crossed the line before he's accrued that penalty.
Yeah, correct. So that's what I'm sort of going to be looking into after this
now, that is
done.
Unbelievable. He's at 11th and he's a lap down on Will Devenish. That is an absolute disaster for Stenberg.
Well, we did say that what would happen most likely is that if you did take a pit stop, you'd go a lap down, and that's precisely what seems to have happened.
So drama upon drama in this race, but another win for Will Devenish. First clean sweep of the season. He took pole, won race 1 in the most unlikely of circumstances, and race 2, a very stellar performance for Will Devenish.
Yeah, it's hit Will Devenish's first clean sweep of the season. Kurt Stenberg had done it on a couple of occasions, taking pole for the opening 3 races and then setting the fastest laps and also winning those races as well. So good result for him. But I'm still gobsmacked. I can't believe if that's a fuel strategy miscalculation that's what's happened. We're seriously going to have to go.
It's pretty unbelievable.
It's pretty unbelievable. We're going to have to go back and take a bit of a look to see what happened there. So while I go back and have a look at some of these results to see what happened, our top 3, which is the same top 3 that we had in race 1, but just with a couple of positions reversed.
Let's put a caveat on that. Yeah, like you said, a couple of positions reversed. A bit different. Same, but different.
Same,
the more
but
things
different.
change, the more things that stay the same. So we'll start with our third place getter as usual. Luke Rosella, fantastic effort again. And unfortunately, a bit of lag issues showing up once again. But that was, otherwise you could have been potentially fighting for a race win or further up the podium into second.
Yeah, like you said, the same. I'm in a good position, and this little lag thing decides to screw up a bit of my race. But I'm just really happy with my pace this week. For this race, it's been fast all week in practice. I guess tinkering with a few things to just get a right balance. But I'm really happy, and again, had a good battle with Brenton Foley at the end there.
Now we saw you on the start. Pretty ripper start, and you did stick up with Will Devenish there. What were you thinking just going into turn 1? You're just like, I might have the lead here.
Yeah, just concentrated on protecting that inside line, because you want to have that inside line going to that chicane. So just concentrated on that, and did a good job of it. But just got screwed over again.
A very blunt way to put it, but that's what happens sometimes in racing. But Luke, congratulations. You've got another feather in your cap. And again, I mean, it takes a lot for Steve and I to start singing your praises. But again, you've made it happen again. And congratulations on a stellar effort.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Second place went to Brenton Foley after, 77 thousandths of a second separating you and Rosella. I mean, that's unbelievable. But how was your race, and are you pleased with your efforts, Brenton?
Yeah, I'm really happy with my driving tonight. Calder is not a track that I'm normally good at, but to go away from tonight with 2 podiums, I'm really happy. But from the start of that race, I could not wait for it to be over. I don't know what I did, but I think in race 1, I was coming out of the last corner, and right when I took my left hand off the wheel to change gear, it kicked sideways, and as I caught it with one hand, I've twisted my wrist in a really weird way. So the whole race was just a fair amount of pain, but very happy that I didn't call it and I just stuck with it.
Yeah, even more impressive effort that you had to fight a injured wrist or just a bit of pain there. But I guess that shows that sim racing sometimes is a little bit dangerous. But Brenton, I think we're now seeing some of the glimpses of form that we typically saw last year, and you've managed to keep up there in a battle with Stenberg.
Hopefully, he might have been saving a little bit of fuel there, but I'm showing a bit more pace. It's about time. I'm still not 100% to grips with the car this year, because it was changed a little bit from last season to this one, and PBF as a team are kind of struggling to wrap our heads around it still. But overall, really happy to kind of be up there a little bit more than what I was early in the season.
Again, congratulations on a fantastic second place, and good to see you back on the podium.
Thanks very much.
And second race win of the evening, pole position, 1 race win, and again another race win. Fantastic, Will Devenish. How do you feel?
Yeah, really pleased with tonight's effort and the team's effort. All 4 cars finishing both races, and the car in the second race, it could not put a foot wrong. It was doing everything I was telling it to do. So, yeah, really pleased with that. And even towards the end of that race, I was pulling out qualifying laps, so I was pretty glad with that, and just able to run away with it tonight.
Would you say the second race was a lot better than your first?
Yeah, it was a lot more consistent. Again, I was lucky that Kurt had a bit of an accident earlier on, but after 5-6 laps, I was able to settle down and just churn out lap after lap. And as mentioned, the car was just doing everything perfectly. So yeah, definitely the second race was much better than the first.
And with Kurt Stenberg's unfortunate dramas, that actually brings you back towards his margin. It actually closes the margin up to Stenberg.
Yeah, we needed a small miracle, and I think it happened tonight. So I've had the last 2 rounds had some average races, so being able to pull it back this round is a bit of a godsend. So yeah, good result.
Well done, Will. The clean sweep tonight. Pole, race 1 and race 2. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Steve, what a race we had tonight. What a race, a mini race weekend compressed into one night. But qualifying brought the goods. Race 1 brought the goods. It was all action, and race 2. Would you say race 2 even up the action compared to race 1?
Well, I did say that we'd had the main course and we were waiting on the dessert, and I thought that race 2 was going to be the dessert, and it certainly turned out to be that way. We had a few twists in the tail we weren't expecting to get tonight. So, and as you rightly pointed out, the point standings after tonight, provisionally, subject to any penalties and things like that, the deficit has gone from 201 points from Stenberg to Devenish to 93, with those 2 non-podium results for Kurt Stenberg. That 11th place has really hurt him a lot. If he had been able to come home in, even let's just say even in 4th place, that deficit would still be 141. So that's a huge chunk of points gone begging. Really closes that top 2 up in the championship. Foley's only another 42 points further back of Will Devenish though as well. So those couple of good podium results for Brenton Foley have managed to keep him in good stead. And of course the man in 4th place that came into tonight, Mitch Hathaway, he didn't arrive tonight. So he doesn't go anywhere, but he's still safe from Termo, Cam Rutledge, Steve Burko, those guys that are behind him. So plenty to play for when we next hit the supercars scene, which is the Townsville 200 round. And as you saw on the supercars calendar, that comes up as the North Queensland 200 on the 2nd of July. So still a little while to go, nearly 4 weeks away actually, about 3 and a bit weeks still to go. So we look forward to seeing you there for when we do supercars action again. Likewise, we look forward to seeing you when we have the second to last round of the GT3 World Series next Tuesday here on this channel. As always, guys, please drive safely. Please come along and participate in the AMS Supercars series. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.